afternoon and welcome to this special meeting of the Johnson County Community College Board of Trustees. I'm Lee Cross, and a roll call shows that we have Trustee Don Rattan, Trustee Greg Musel, Trustee Nancy Ingram, and Trustee Laura Smith Everett, Trustee Mark Campbell. Is he on Zoom? I apologize, I don't know where he's at. We were scheduled to meet here today at 9 o'clock. And 4 o'clock. It's been a day.
That's 4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock here today. So we have 7 different applicants, highly qualified applicants to review. I will say for the public and just to remind our trustees who know that this vacancy was created by former trustee Joy Costen's resignation. We've gone through an extensive application and review process. We met last month twice to iron out these final 7 applicants. So I think Trustee Musel and Ingram and I did this in 2016. I did it with Trustee Musel in 13, and Greg, I believe, you did it in 12 for Trustee Lindstrom. So it's been a while since we've done this. We've worked, and Dr. Bound and his staff have worked extremely hard to follow the exact down to, I think, verbatim letter of what we did in 2016. The process is as quick as it was when we filled the former trustee Bob Drummond's position for Trustee Henry Sandays. With that said, I know that the administration sent questions to the trustees last week, and that they're before you now. So those are recommended questions. I would say largely what I relied on in 2016. This professional staff has always made me look smarter than I really am. So read them, don't read them. It's entirely up to you. But the Trustee Mark Campbell is just one. So you're now all here. Mark, I just said there's questions before you that we used in 2016. Use them, don't use them. It's entirely up to you. The staff and I and Trustee Ingram have worked to put quality questions before you, so you have a good basis of what to ask. Before we begin, I will say, as far as I'm concerned, and the previous trustees I've served with, we're looking for someone who's going to do the best job and do what's in the best interest of the college. I just wanted that standard, at least my expectation, to be known. There's no ball hiding there. Hated that aspect of law school. And I'll say that there's 7 phenomenal candidates that make me proud to live in Johnson County and to be a part of Kansas. So thank you to everyone who applied. We don't start till 4:10. I guess I'll ask the board here, is there anything I didn't say or we should say, Trustee Rattan?
I looked over the questions, and I know that we have decided to continue to use questions that we have from 2016, but I do feel that in the 6 or more years since we've done this, things have changed rapidly. And what I find is a glaring miss is there's no question that says, why do you want to be a trustee?
Well, that's fair enough, and I appreciate your criticism wholeheartedly. I argue for a living, so I welcome your input. And I do want to say, I think we added the question on diversity. I'm not sure.
No, that was there.
That was there. Okay. Fair point, Trustee Rattan. I think you can ask Dr. Bound that in the last 5 days, I worked hard to make sure trustees had the autonomy and the authority to ask whatever question you want. So thank you for seeing that not there. I guess it's at a certain point, I'm just trying to make it so that we presented you with good and adequate questions. Whatever you want to ask is on you or any other trustees. So I'm not trying to single you out. Anything else I've missed here for the good of the order? Trustee.
The only experience I have to go on is our presidential interviews. And one of the things I found helpful was we all picked, we went in an order that then if I wanted to switch out a question, I was always switching out question 7. Is that something we are going to do, or are we just picking? I wasn't sure how we were going to go.
To assign questions.
Yeah, basically in an order of Greg's always asking question 2 and 3 and 4, so forth, or if you had thoughts on.
I like freedom.
Yeah.
So I wanted to leave it to this board to decide. I didn't want to make that call. So what are you presenting?
My preference would be if I just knew an order And then when it's your turn to ask the question, you can pick, your number 4 if you want, or you can trade it out for the question you would like to ask. But it would just let me know I'm always going to be the 4th person to ask question or on the first round. And then I don't know, I'm just going based on the presidential. Then we could ask more personal follow-up questions if we still had time. I didn't know if that was just my suggestion based on what we did then.
Mr. Chair, I think it would be helpful to know, so we don't waste any time saying who's going to ask the next question. If we just maybe start with Laura on one and start with Mark on the other and reverse them each time, so you're not in the same order. But at least everybody knows when their question is coming up.
Agree.
And that way we don't spend time looking at each other and trying to figure out.
Yeah.
25 minutes is going to go, or 20 minutes, 20 minutes is going to go really fast.
Yeah.
After their 15 minutes
Fair enough.
questions.
Is the group in agreement that trustee Smith Everett will lead, and then does trustee Ingram go first the next time? Is that what
Oh,
we're
we can do
suggesting?
that way too.
That works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With 7, yeah, that works.
That way nobody's going first.
Yeah. I
I
like,
don't want to hear about how Laura took the same question
yeah, exactly.
7 times. That's why I avoided this.
It's the worst.
I just was trying to open it up.
That's a great suggestion.
Okay.
Brilliant.
No, hey, thank you. There's 6 of us. Dr. Bound did want me to go through the process here.
Just starting here with the first.
First, we'll interview the 7 candidates who were selected. Is that where you want me to? My producer is saying that's, I started reading it. First, we'll interview the 7 candidates who were selected for the interviews. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to give an opening statement and then 15 minutes to answer the questions from the trustees. Each trustee has a predetermined list of questions, which we will ask each candidate with some additional optional questions if time allows. That'll be the open interview round. And the nomination round, once the interviews are completed, we will begin the nomination round. First, written ballots will be provided to each trustee. Second, trustees may vote for up to 2 candidates to be moved forward to the final round. And 3 ballots will be tabulated and read aloud. Fourth, any candidate not receiving 2 or more votes will be eliminated at that point. Fifth, all candidates receiving 2 or more votes will then be moved to the final round. And in the final round, the process will proceed as follows. Written ballots will be distributed again to each trustee. Trustees will vote for only 1 candidate. The votes will then be tallied and read aloud until there are 2 final candidates. I'll interject. I'm sure trustee Musel and Ingram will remember, we were deadlocked for several rounds the last time. The candidate receiving the fewest votes in each final round will be voting will be dropped until 2 finalists remain. Only 1 candidate receives a majority of votes outright, unless only 1 candidate receives a majority of votes outright. Once there are 2 finalists, the board may openly discuss the 2 final candidates for up to 5 minutes. And then the final ballot voting will be repeated with only the 2 final candidates listed. 5-minute board discussion and voting on the final 2 candidates may be repeated multiple times if necessary. When 1 candidate receives the vote of the majority of the board, that is 4 votes, I will ask for a motion to select the final candidate to fill the vacant trustee position. This process will likely take some time, so I will call for a break at some point tonight. Thank you to whoever wrote that. And during any break, no trustee will talk to any other trustee about the candidates outside of this room. And are there any questions before we get started? Any questions? And I will undoubtedly look to Kelsey.
My only question would be, as described, there would only be discussion of candidates when we reach the round of 2. And I guess in the words of the chair, I might reserve the notion that if we get down to 3 or 4, we might have some discussion about that before we vote to get down.
I'm fine with that.
I don't know. I'm just trying to anticipate with, as you mentioned, we have 7 people. They're all good. So the differences and nuances, I sometimes might want to hear from my other trustees, or I might want to give my own thoughts.
So just to be clear, and I think I agree with you, you want some discussion after essentially the interview round.
No, after we vote and see who gets 2 votes. So it'd be after the nomination round.
I don't have any problem with that. Any other discussion?
For a maximum of 5 minutes.
Oh, Mr. Trustee, is that?
5 minutes per person?
No, maximum of 5 minutes.
I don't know that we'll need a maximum.
Just for the record, Judy Corb was not smiling.
She is now.
Well, I would think if we're gonna have discussion with 6 people, we ought to at least say 10 minutes and say, you have 1 minute each or something. But I don't think this body's gonna abuse that. But
You want 10 minutes? Is that what you said?
no more than 10 minutes for the
I think
discussion
5's
per
too
round.
few for 7 people.
Yeah, I think
This is going to take a while.
only 6 people, but
Stay close to
6
the
or 7
process.
comment. But yeah, I think 10-minute max is fine.
Here we go.
Everybody doesn't have to talk, except me.
Well,
Have to
I
talk.
don't know.
You have to ask a question.
Is there any objection to what trustee Musel has suggested from any trustee? All right. So unless there's any other objection, I'm going to ask that Ms. Julie Brewer. Now I nominate, right?
I think that the nomination comes after.
After the, after the.
So now we just call.
Now we just
Julie
bring in-
Brewer to
yep.
the room for her interview.
Yes, that's correct.
Do I need to go get her?
Nope.
Yeah.
Were they
Okay. Yep.
reading it? I didn't. I wish I
Where
could use it for reference.
Do they do it from the podium? How do we do that?
That's what you guys did last time.
Please.
Yes. Now, let me ask this. Do the candidates know the process?
Yes.
They've been sent this. Okay.
Not that level of detail, but 5 minutes and 15 minutes. Yes.
Ms. Brewer, before we begin, you understand you'll have 5 minutes to speak.
Yes, and then 15 minutes of Q and A.
Yes, ma'am. 15 minutes of questions and answers. All right, if you're ready.
And do I hit this? Does it need to be green or is it already on? You can hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Julie Brewer. I just want to start by thanking all the current trustees for your public service to our community. And I wanted to share my apologies for not being able to attend the December 15th meeting to consider trustee applications. I unfortunately had a prior obligation that I needed to attend. And I wanted to share a little bit about myself. My family and I moved to Johnson County in 2011 for my husband's work. My 2 daughters, so along with my husband, we have 2 daughters, and over time gained a son-in-law and a grandson. When we moved here, our oldest attended all of high school here and our youngest middle school and high school. A little bit of past election experience. I have previously served once in elected office and I have campaigned once for office. And yes, that is 2 separate things. I grew up in the Quad Cities back in Iowa and Illinois. And while there, I was appointed to serve an unexpired term for a library trustee position. And I was not able to run for reelection because we were moving to Nebraska, which is my other experience. I ran for the newly formed political subdivision called the Learning Community of Douglas and Sarpy Counties. And it was a new political subdivision with K-12 educational responsibilities. And had I gone to bed at 10:30, I would have gone to bed that night as a winner. I won 2 out of the 3 counties, but I lost the election, but ended up being hired to run the learning community. In both cases, I chose to enter into these opportunities because I felt I had the expertise and experience to add value to the table. A little bit of past community college experience. I have experience as a community college. I was a potential instructor. And what I mean by that is I was trained and went through the process to be a guest instructor for a newly minted tourism class, because at that point I was in with the Convention and Visitors Bureau for my community. But unfortunately, the class failed to fill. So I did not get to teach the class. Once we moved here, my oldest took dual credit courses between her high school and Johnson County Community College. Thank you. That means she started out her 4-year education with some of her gen ed credits already taken care of. And in my job as Executive Director of United Community Services of Johnson County, a role I've had since 2016, we've worked with college staff around the employment planning project, the Bridge to Success project between Olathe Public Schools and Johnson County Community College. We've used your student ad agency here during the pandemic for some social media work we were doing. And Personally, the community college system has always been an important part of the fabric of my life. My dad taught at Black Hawk Community College for over 35 years, was a department head, was the first faculty member appointed chair of the Educational Foundation, and in retirement, he too served in unexpired terms of trustees. So I kind of grew up a community college kiddo. So with that, that's a little bit about me.
Yes, first, if I may, that concludes your statement.
That concludes my statement. Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Just for clock purposes is why I'm asking.
Nope, not a problem.
Now, I guess I'd like to turn it over to the trustees. I think trustee Laura Smith Everett's going first.
Thank you. Can you describe your overall philosophy of education and how community college plays into that philosophy, as well as how a member of a board of trustees plays into that philosophy?
Absolutely. So you think about public education and you think about the history of public education, and really the history as far as having a federal department of education only goes back to the 70s, I believe, during the Ford administration. So you think about the pivotal role public education plays as a foundation to our community, as the ability to instill and empower and prepare our residents, really from cradle to grave, right? To be continuous learners and to be able to fulfill their own personal potential, which then creates them as a vital resource for our community. You think about specifically community colleges, and you think about how that system really grew into being when you think about the history around access, right? Access for first generation post-secondary learners, access for that part-time student, access for maybe having that education coming alongside my workday, maybe be supported like some of the programs that we see that Johnson County Community College does with the workforce supporting that continuous education. That constant learner, right? We also think of different types of disparity, right? With gender, how we know in Johnson County, we know that moms, single head of household moms with minor age children are 5 times, the poverty rate is 5 times that of the rest of the county. So we think of those access points that community college creates. Then we also just think of the community aspect of a community college. You think of the arts, the entertainment, the gathering spaces that you have created around that, but also just real gathering spaces. You think of the brand new barbecue pavilion that you're opening. That's, an attribute to the Culinary Institute, but also, as I nudged my husband on the drive to errands this weekend, that maybe he could brush up on his barbecue skills with a course through the college. So you think of that ongoing learner opportunity that we have. And really, the ability of a community college to be very changeable and flexible, right, to the needs of its community. When you think about changing needs of a workforce, I think about some of that growing up in the Quad Cities. We were the ag implement capital, right? With Deere and Company, and used to be Farmall and Harvester and all that, and the changes we had to make as our economic landscape changed during those years.
Ms. Brewer, if I can interrupt you. Thank you
Yes,
for that
I'm sorry.
answer. You're fine. I need to move on out of
Yep,
fairness.
no problem.
Thank you. Trustee Ingram.
Yes. Would you, let me see, what are 3 top issues that you see facing the college in the next 5 years?
3 top issues facing the college. We know that across the nation, post-secondary enrollment has taken a bit of a downturn. I think we're still trying to figure out how much of that is due to the pandemic and that change to online learning. So I think we're still understanding and growing in our awareness of what that looks like. So I think we've got to be cognizant of how do we maintain and grow enrollment. I think we're going to see changing needs in our community. I think Johnson County Community College has already provided a really good platform to be flexible and to pivot. I think about some of the training programs that you've already created with employers around our community, and the recent one that has been inked with Amazon. I think about what that looks as we're working with Panasonic and what that changing workforce. I think we've already, as a community college, demonstrated that flexibility in the site that's out at the KC Logistics Center as far as getting into new training and opportunities. And the third priority, I think, is funding. As we think about, we have done well, right, as a state, when we look at receipts compared to budget over the last few years. I think we are all wondering what 2023 looks like fiscally in a lot of different ways. And I think we just have to keep our eye on the prize when we think about fiscal responsibility of ensuring that we have a quality product and that it's accessible to the variety of different types of students.
Thank you for that answer. What is your experience and function with overseeing large organizational or institutional budgets?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I've been in my sectors for over 30 years now, and I have worked both for volunteer boards and elected boards. I think a good example of being able to be nimble and to immerse in new information is the work that I did with the learning communities of Douglas and Sarpy County.
Douglas is Omaha, right?
This is Omaha, Nebraska.
Just
Yes,
so-
Omaha proper.
The public is, I have in-laws that live in Omaha. I just wanted to be clear, like.
Oh, we weren't talking about Douglas. Yes, my
Sorry to interrupt.
apologies. Yes, when I was at my time in Nebraska before we moved here. So we think about that. It was a brand new political subdivision for the state of Nebraska. There hadn't been a new one in like 15 years. It was guided by new statute and good new funding responsibility. We went from an organization that started with a $500,000 budget in its first few months to more than $10 million and over $140 million in levying responsibilities that we had to do. So that gave me a huge immersion in not only growth of budget, new legislative responsibilities, but also we had 8 public bodies under the learning community. So at any one time, there was never a week where I did not have a public meeting that I was organizing, promoting, attending, and facilitating.
Thank you for that answer. Trustee Mills.
Welcome, Julie. You mentioned earlier fiduciary responsibility as in the terms of promoting, making sure we have programs available and teaching and learning. Well, how do you describe your fiduciary responsibility, your fiscal responsibility in terms of to all the stakeholders that this college has?
Absolutely. So I think of the fiscal and fiduciary responsibility I've had throughout most of my career. Let's just look at the United Community Services of Johnson County. We have everything. We have private and public dollars. Of course, we're near the budget of the community college, but certainly understanding the ability to articulate what are the funds needed for, how will they be used. What do outcome measurements look like? How do we report on those outcome measurements? And how do we track that progress of those dollars and be able to articulate when and why, if we need an increase, or when and why we could actually save some dollars, right? And really see cost saving measures.
Thank you.
Trustee Rattay.
Describe your view of a board member's role and the board's collective role in the operations of the college.
Absolutely. Once again, I'm going to rely a little bit on the years of experience I've had in reporting to boards, both appointed and elected. And I think about our governance responsibility as twofold. We are not, it's always been when you've been in mission-based work throughout most of your career, you've typically have worked with this oversight that aren't with you day to day, right? So you have to find a way to communicate up so that your governing body has a real-time understanding of the work that's being done, but also a trust of the professionals that are doing the day-to-day work. Understanding that governing is governing not just of the organization, but how do we govern each other as a body from a standpoint of bringing the best of ourselves to the table understanding that we sit on different subcommittees and trusting that we'll bring that information back and have enough information to articulate and do decision-making. Understanding our responsibility to do the homework before the meeting and come in prepared with our questions, and oftentimes hopefully submitting those questions ahead of time so a productive conversation can occur and that we're prepared to act in a measured way that's reflective of the needs of all our residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You spoke a lot of being appointed to boards and working on boards, and I was kind of curious if you could talk and expand more on your private sector experience.
Absolutely. So my private sector experience, Trustee Hamel, includes working for a brand new business in the community that I grew up in that was to help revitalize Main Street. And that was the rebirth of riverboat gambling on the Mississippi River. So in that work, I had the opportunity to see an organization go from about 200 staff to 2,000 staff within a year, right? And go from a small business model to really a checks and balances business model. In that role, I also had the interesting responsibility to help do the public relations on taking a private company to public trading company and what that work would look like, and working with national and financial reporting outlets on what it looks like to present an IPO. In that experience, as well as the prior experience with my Convention and Visitors Bureau, we were doing a lot of that Main Street redevelopment and trying to find our pathways to economic stability because of the changing agricultural implement industry in that community that I grew up in. So sat around a lot of economic development tables, a lot of new growth tables, and really had gained a great appreciation for that side of the sectors that we work with.
Trustee Ingram, Smith Everett, excuse me.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about what you think the best balance of communication is for a board, like a board of trustees with that oversight arm, as you mentioned, not in the day-to-day. But what kind of communication do you think is most helpful or most effective to help you do your job?
Absolutely. You know, having a good, not only that budget in hand, but a good understanding of the underpinnings of what makes up the budget from the fiscal aspect, having financials that give a clear articulation of where we're at and where we're going, and maybe a 3-year comparison, right? To kind of see what that track record of collections look like, if expenditures look like, understanding if there's a significant variance, what does that look like? So that's the fiscal end of it. Really understanding from programs and policy, I'm assuming that there's a good kind of a background piece on that, and that when we are moving a new opportunity forward, that there's, you know, the introduction, the discussion, and the ramp up before decision making. So really looking for that progressive, continuous understanding and growth that most big decisions would not happen in one meeting, but through a subcommittee process, and then through an introduction review, and then action process.
Thank you.
Trustee.
Yes. If you could tell us about one of your weaknesses and one of your strengths that you could bring to it.
All right.
The strength that you would bring, the weakness that you would also consider showing.
So I'm going to begin with the weakness. The weakness is I like to understand an issue at the detail level. It's part of the reason that I was recruited by the person who won my sub-council in my election area, the top vote getter, to see if I would run the learning community, is because I took a lot of time to understand the law, right? The new legislation. So my ability to really dig down and understand and do the homework. My, is a strength, but it's also a weakness because I will go into great detail and understanding, you know, keeping in mind to keep things at a 30,000 foot level and not get into the weeds is part of that continuous growth for me. But the good side is I will do the homework and the data and the research and come prepared. And I've had a lot of opportunity over my times in different positions to be a lot of strategic tables. And I really like putting the different pieces together and figuring out a road to yes. So breaking down barriers rather than building barriers.
The issue of local control impacts many areas of the college's operations, including financing, programming, responsiveness to community needs, and so forth. Could you please describe your understanding of the various issues embodied in the concept of local control, and your opinion of the importance of local control to JCC's governance in 50 seconds?
Wow, in 47 seconds, let me see if I can jump into this. So all of us applicants had an opportunity to take a little bit of President Bound's time prior to today's meeting. And so the question I did ask him was around local control. I understand that there are 19 community colleges throughout the state, and there's been movement, or there's been conversation at legislative sessions year after year about changing the fabric of how control amongst community colleges. I'm also given to understand that there's already a mechanism within statute that if community colleges decided to merge in some way or fashion, that there's a mechanism to address changing what that government, what that oversight looks like.
And your time has expired, but I can deduce that you're for local control.
Absolutely, right.
Thank
Yes.
I would like to have you keep talking, but that's the end of your time.
That's not a
Thank you for
problem.
coming. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I believe we just roll, right?
We have a 1 minute break to give you a little transition time, right? 4:35 is when we begin again, but
We'll be back at 4:35. Now I'm going to call Greg Mitchell to the podium, who's here. And just for any relevant record, the interviewee can see the clock, right, Jason? Yeah. Just so there's a.
I see a clock. Yep.
Okay. I thought so, but I want to be nervous about it. Unless there's any other objection, I'm going to ask Mr. Mitchell to begin.
All right. Good evening, Johnson County Community College Board of Trustees. This evening, you will be deciding which of seven candidates will be filling a vacant position on the board, as you well know. I am humbled and honored to be amongst the 7 people who have been given the opportunity to stand before you this evening. I hope this doesn't sound naive of me, but as someone who has held countywide or nearly countywide office before, my hope is that the 6 of you will come to a consensus selection that suits your individual styles and of course suits the JCCC community. Of course, a consensus selection will not necessarily be everybody's first choice, but a choice that everyone can respect. So a little bit about me. I'm not from Kansas originally, but I feel like I have deep roots here. My father was from Centralia, Kansas. My mother is from Frankfort, Kansas. Both of these are small farming communities in the northwest part of the state. My father was one of 11 children, most of his siblings located from the farm to Kansas City, and most of them had 5 or 6 kids. So when I moved to Kansas City, I was already connected to the community through my aunts, uncles, cousins, and those connections have only deepened over time as I have built a life with friends, business associates, and developed a family here. I actually grew up in Colorado, where I lived until I was 30 years old. Since leaving Denver, I have lived in the area for almost 27 years, save for a year and a half living on the West Coast. We'll get back to that in a minute. During the Kansas City years, I have lived on both sides of the state line. I have resided in Olathe since 2014 and previously resided in Roland Park from 2001 to 2011. In fact, my longest residence at a single address over the course of my entire life was in Roland Park. That will soon be surpassed by Olathe. Since coming to Kansas City, I have worked in healthcare, first in the insurance industry, and for the last 23 years in various hospitals around the Kansas City area. For the past 18 or so of those years, I've been working in leadership positions within the procurement and materials handling functions. My current role is Senior Director of Corporate Supply Chain Services with University Health, also known as Truman Medical Center. So I mentioned I was away for a while. And to expose the proverbial 600-pound gorilla, I vacated my seat on the Water One board. During that time, I was living and working in Oakland for Safety Net Hospital, the only level 1 trauma center in Oakland. I made the decision to take this position because during the early stages of the pandemic, it was challenging to make rain as an independent consultant. As there are a limited number of positions like mine in Kansas City, I knew I was going to have to take a role in another city. A level 1 trauma center in Oakland seemed interesting to me. The experience I had in Oakland turned out to be one of the greatest of my life, and I have no regrets. That said, I really enjoyed my time on the Water One board, and I missed it greatly. But Johnson County citizens do not want their elected officials living out of state, especially in California and especially in the San Francisco area. I could have faked my residency at least for a while. I continued to maintain a primary residence in Olathe, had a Kansas driver's license, Kansas license plates, came home from time to time, like a lot of people who go away for work. I decided that leaving the board was the right thing to do for myself and for my family. Anyway, I've been back now for about 7 months and I have no intentions of ever leaving again. And so I stand here tonight with yet another opportunity to serve. So we've established that my mother has the same hometown as Trustee Musso, that I have lived in the area off and on for a long while, that I am connected to the community, and that I have briefly held elected office, that I like working for Safety Net Hospital Systems, and implicitly that I believe Johnson County has excellent water. So the question is, why do I want to do this? The desire to serve is something that all of you understand. It may or may not be something that you can quantify, but you understand it. Several years ago, I decided that I wanted to serve on a preferably nonpartisan board that provides governance of public goods. At the time, I thought about the school board. That's become kind of partisan since. Anyway, while mulling over the school board run, the possibility of the JCC board and the Water One board also garnered my attention. Ultimately, I decided on Water One because the board had too many members with 20 years plus experience. Make no mistake, experience on a board is critically important, but so is perspective. I felt that I could offer a fresh perspective and be a good add to an already solid board. And I thought it'd be a great experience. And I am out of time.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Mr. Mitchell, we're going to jump right to our
Okay.
questions, and Trustee Ingram is first.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mitchell, for being here. What are the top 3 issues you see facing the college in the next 5 years?
Well, I would say in no particular order, enrollment, finances, and probably the image of the organization, maintaining a positive image.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. What is your experience and function with overseeing large organizational and institutional budgets?
Yeah. So I've worked at some pretty large hospital systems. I've managed budgets in the $50 million range. My experience, it's probably as much luck as anything, but I've had good luck. I've had a budget responsibility with my various employers for 15 or so years. And I think there was really only 1 year where I didn't make budget. I say that's partially luck because there's a lot of stuff in my budget that is outside of my control. It just happens to fall in my area because somebody's got to be responsible for institutional things. I've been pretty good at it, I guess, but I've been pretty lucky as well.
Thank you. Trustee Muse.
Greg, thank you for coming. And I hate to tell you this, but one from Frankfurt is great. One from Centralia completely eliminates that.
Oh,
We were big rivals, same school district. No, I'm glad to know about that connection to God's country. My question is generally focused on fiscal responsibility and how do we balance that with all the stakeholders that the college has. But I'd like you to expand on your answers to Trustee Ingram's question and about if we've got enrollment, finances, and image. What thoughts do you have on how we address those issues in the next 5 years? Probably with a focus on finance for me.
yeah, because I think enrollment is a challenging one. And I don't know that I can give you good answers on that. I think what it boils down to is you got to live within your means, right? So I know that there's a lot of diverse stakeholders in an organization like this. I would imagine that this would be fairly complicated, like a hospital is. So, I think the challenge is really kind of getting everybody together on the same page. Collaboration. Having crucial conversations with people, making people understand what our issues are, and prioritizing things. I don't think the organization is going to run out of money. I mean, I can't imagine that, but there's always a greater demand for stuff than there is a supply of funding for it. So it's all about getting everybody on the same page.
Trustee Ratin.
Describe your view of a board member's role and the board's collective role in operations of the college.
Right. So, when you're on the board, I think it'd be foolish to get hyper-focused on mundane daily management stuff. That's really not the responsibility of the board. So the board has a responsibility to review policies, finances, and the crucial things that govern the organization. And really the responsibility is to, be collectively, individually and collectively a second set of eyes for what the administration is doing to manage the facility. So know where to keep your business to yourself and stay out of other people's business, and approve budgets, review policies when applicable, and focus on what's really important for the organization.
Trustee Ham.
Yeah, I'd like, if you can go over your strength and weakness and how you dealt with those over the years.
Everything I've ever done well and everything I've ever failed on or not done well on has boiled down to communication on some level. And I will tell you in all sincerity, at times it's both my strength and my weakness. Where it's my strength is sometimes I hit it out of the park. Where it's my weakness is sometimes I don't, and I know better. So this is a constant challenge in my professional career, is making sure that I'm taking the time or focusing my effort on
Trustee Smith.
Thank you. Tell me, Greg, what do you see as the role of a community college in a community?
Yeah, so, providing educational development for continuing education, skills development, and in many cases, the traditional thought a lot of people have is that it's kind of the starting point towards a bachelor's journey. So I think there's a lot of things they can do. They could, there are probably students here who have the same educational background or similar educational background to me. I have a couple of master's degrees. I already have a bachelor's degree, of course. And yet there's always much to be learned that wouldn't make sense for, going to a place like UMKC or KU or whatever. So I think an organization like this can offer a lot of benefit to a very diverse group of people with different educational needs.
Trustee Ingram.
Yes. How do you see technology affecting Johnson County Community College now and in the next 5 years?
Well, I guess the last few years has proved that it's increasingly important, especially for communications. So every time I try to put the crystal ball on in terms of technology and think about the way the world will look in a few years, I'm usually way off. It accelerates way past my expectations generally. But obviously, especially with younger students, people coming out of high school, their needs and desires from a technology perspective are way out there compared to certainly what mine were when I went to college. I think I had a typewriter for doing papers. So word processing is, that's passé stuff now, right? I think it's just going to continue to advance. It represents a great opportunity and a great expense. So that's one of those things you have to weigh.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell, I've advocated that Colorado State be part of the Big 12, actually.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that.
I also went to KU and UMKC. Could you talk about your educational background and your connection with higher education?
Yeah. So I have an as you mentioned, undergraduate degree from the Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado. I studied computer information systems there. Back then, that was a small-ish program in the business school. And I think probably 10 years after I graduated, it was their largest program. Back then, it was really a funded training academy for Hewlett Packard. They had a big presence in Northern Colorado. Then after college, I worked in Denver for a while, and eventually was transferred to Kansas City with Cigna Healthcare, and came here, worked. In 2000, I decided that now was the time to finally go back to graduate school. It may have been 2001, somewhere in that time frame. And so pretty much for that entire decade, I was in graduate school. All right, I completed my Master's of Health Services Administration from the University of Kansas. And then went on to UMKC and did an MBA there. Finished up in 2009. Everybody kept on asking me when I was going to do my PhD. No, I don't think so.
Trustee Muse.
Greg, I want to go back again because you mentioned the three issues facing, and I want to get to the last one, which was the image of the organization as a I don't know if we're talking about JCCC in particular or community colleges in general, but tell me what you meant by that. And then give me any examples of when in your hospital experiences, because some of those hospitals, Truman's a tough place, and the images of that, but have you faced that kind of an image issue before, and how have you dealt with it within an organization, understanding you're not in the public relations department?
And I'll talk briefly about the hospitals I've worked at. And I have to tell you, I wish I could take credit for what I'm going to share with you, but I went to work at KU Medical Center in 1999. And many of you may remember that back then, people were like, really, KU? That place is horrible. And in a very short period of time, that organization turned things around. And they and I think part of their success, well, there are really two factors. One is that they became an independent authority from the state. So they had the ability to control their own destiny a little bit more. It was also that decade there of the 2000s was a particularly good period for academic medical centers for a wide variety of reasons, some of which I don't entirely understand. But one thing that they did there is every 2 weeks they had a leadership meeting, and they focused on every meeting. They did a report on quality and patient satisfaction. They focused on those two core things, and their philosophy was if you focus on those and do those things well, the finances will follow. And as you all know, that I was over there, or I was talking to someone over there the other day, and they had 1,000 patients in 1,000. Their census was 1,000 patients. When I started there, they had 190 average daily census. So I can't take any credit for that, but I certainly saw that in action. But I believe that culture drives your department, your organization. And so I've dealt with cultural change in many of the departments I've worked in. And supply chain in particular, there's a tendency for people to have a very transactional focus on what they're doing. We're cutting POs, we're delivering supplies or whatever. And so trying to shift that focus a little bit to be more strategic is something that I've worked on. And it's slow. It's a slow process. You just meet with people, you talk to them about it, you get it in their head that, we're we're gonna handle things a little bit more strategically, and over time, it slowly but surely, you start to turn the ship around a little bit.
Trustee Rattan.
How do you see diversity on our campus?
You know, I'll have to be honest with you, I haven't walked around enough to quote unquote see it, if you're asking for a visual. But in general, I don't know that I see much of it. But diversity is a challenging thing too, right? I mean, you could get a bunch of guys like me together who look just like me or my age, have similar education. There's still a lot of diversity there. And so, you know, how you suss that out and take full advantage of that is a challenge. So even when you don't have the hallmarks, quote unquote, of diversity, like I've seen in some of the hospitals I've worked in that were fairly diverse, there's always opportunities. You can build on those sort of classic diversity measurements, but you can also work with your existing situation to really maximize the benefit of that.
Trustee Hill.
Yeah, tell me about your ties to Johnson County Community College.
I didn't go to school here. I'll be honest with you, I've been on campus a few times. I have two stepdaughters who both have taken classes here. One of them is a graduate of K-State, and she's taking classes to build some skills and for fun. And the other one is still hasn't completed her college curriculum. Who knows if she will? But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'd be lying if I didn't say I had massive and extensive ties to the community college. I don't want to be disingenuous about that. So.
Trustee Ingram or Smith Everett.
You caught me flat-footed because I thought he'd run out his time, but you didn't. You had a whole 23 seconds there. I'm going to pass. Do you have one? Sorry, I was listening so intently I didn't prepare.
I guess I would just say, is there anything else that you would like to share with us as we're closing?
No, I don't envy you guys. You got a lot of tough decisions to make this evening, and I'm sure you'll make a great decision.
7
That's it.
wonderfully qualified people.
Yeah,
Thank you for being
you,
Thank you.
you betcha.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was like, oh, he still has time. Like, I really didn't.
I was like, I'm gonna think about the paper, newspaper.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, that's right. And centrality, if you want to keep wrong, he made people consolidate.
Is everyone in agreement? Can we keep rolling? Or do we need
Yes.
to take a break to 5?
Come on, 60 seconds.
Andy's upset that Greg asked for 10 more minutes.
No, I'm ready to go.
I said yes, so I'd like to make up the 10 minutes. If we're all in agreement, and I believe Mr. Norkey is present, are we all ready to begin?
Sir.
Without objection, Mr. Norkey, if you could please start us off with your statements.
Thank you, Chairman Cross. Trustees, Dr. Bowen, it's a pleasure to be here. I do not envy your position today. I am in the company of some amazing qualified candidates today, and it humbles me to be here. So thank you for the opportunity. You have my application, you have my resume. It outlines my professional experience and my long litany of community involvement, whether it's as a bar association president, professionally, church leadership, or community-wise as Blue Valley Rec Commissioner and Chairman. I've been involved, and with Blue Valley Rec, it's a very similar board as this one is. But I don't think it's just about prior service. I think it's about how you do the service. So I just want to share one story about prior service that I've had, specifically around Church of the Resurrection. I chaired their board of trustees, and by having that position, I also sat on the church council. That was the governing body of the whole church for the programming. Trustees handled the business side. It was a body of about 20, 30 people normally. I think 36 officially sat on that church council. Issues arose. Churches have business issues and they have very large budgets. If you're the largest congregation in the country, largest United Methodist congregation in the country, issues arise and disagreements can come up. Now, it's not easy to challenge someone like Adam Hamilton. I'm sure most of you know Adam Hamilton. And to stand up and question someone like him with a flock of tens of thousands, someone you respect immensely, it's not easy to do. But sometimes I felt I had to. About 18 months into my tenure as chair of the trustees, and after a specifically contentious debate over a financial issue where Adam and I went head to head, he reached out to me. He was serious. He was somber. He thought we needed to talk. Uh-oh. I thought for sure, this is it. He's going to ask me to step down. I've said too much. I'm not a team player. So he said, let's talk after the next meeting. All right. After the next meeting, then he called the chairwoman over and said, I think you should join us here. I'm like, oh no. So he started the meeting, the little gathering, by going through our differences that we had over the last 18 months, went over his frustration to the point that he had shared it with his wife, that it got to that level. So I was just waiting for it. But then he said, I'd like you to chair the church council for the next 3 years. So after I picked myself off the floor, found my voice, I said, why? Why? We keep having these disagreements. And he said, because. No. Do I like to be challenged? No. But you made me a better leader. And you did it civilly, and you did it collaboratively, and you listened to all the opposing viewpoints. We need that, and that's why I want you to lead this group for the next 3 years. So that taught me 3 things. Number one, speaking up at the right time, in the right manner, and on the right issues is vitally important, especially when you're in a position that you can make a difference. 2, listen respectfully to informed opposition because you just might learn something. And 3, do not be afraid to stand up and do any of these. Because when it's right, even if you're going to lose something, because if it's right, it's the right thing to do. Even if you're going to lose a position on a board or an election. This is what I would do for JCCC. A strong college is vital to the fabric of this community. It provides untold economic and overall community benefits. And it positively impacts thousands every single year. If selected, I will join you in your quest to always be a nationwide and innovative leader in equitable student access, learning, and success, and to fight alongside you to maintain local control, chart a path forward, and to help inspire learning to transform lives and strengthen our community.
Does that conclude your statement?
That concludes my statement, Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman.
I do know Adam Hamilton and believe we've met a time or two. So with a lot of love and respect, could you give me some examples of when you challenged Mr. Hamilton's?
And now we're getting a little into discussions. I don't know if
I've never heard
I should be
anybody
going
do that,
into.
to be real honest with you.
There were some financial discussions, and I will tell you one had to do with an alcohol policy. But one of them was it was a contentious financial issue that had legal ramifications. It dealt with use of congregants' funds. I did not believe it was a proper use of congregant funds, and it had to do with a development close to the church in which church members were investors.
And I put you in a difficult position. I intentionally did that, but I apologize. And thank you for the anonymity which you handled.
Yes.
So, trusting you.
Clay, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell me what your vision of all the stakeholders that this community college has, and how, as a member of this board, you would address your fiscal and fiduciary responsibilities to all of those various stakeholders.
Well, that fiscal fiduciary responsibility is a sacred trust. And you are charged with being a good steward. We've got here at the college, as in previous positions I've held, you've got taxpayer money, and you better darn well be taking care of that taxpayer money. You've got money from, I believe you all sit on the college's foundation. So in that role, you're taking care of charitable gifts as well. You've also got a fiduciary responsibility to the students. They are paying tuition to be here and they want to learn. So you have a fiduciary responsibility to give them a good education, a good experience, helping them feel included in a belonging environment when they're paying money to be here. And then you've got staff, you've got faculty, you've got administration, and their livelihoods depend on being here. This is their job. This is how they pay for their home, their car, their lives. And so you have to maintain good fiduciary responsibility to them as well.
Trustee Matee.
What are some issues you see facing our college and the educational field in general?
Well, probably number one, you're always going to have a taxing issue, especially with the revenue neutral rate issues that we've had to deal with the last couple of years. We deal with that with the Blue Valley Rec Commission. That's always a challenge. So funding, while keeping the college still affordable. So funding from local tax dollars, state funding, and maintaining a good affordability as far as tuition goes. I think that's vitally important. A second issue I would say is inclusion, a feeling of belonging, to make sure that folks here are welcome, no matter who they are. I come from a very diverse family. I'm a blended family. I've got 5 Hispanic kids, a Hispanic wife. I've got LGBTQ in my family. I've got kids with autism. And one of them has epilepsy. So having a community where they can all feel included and belong, I think that's very important. I think a third issue would probably be technology, especially in this COVID and post-COVID era, where all of a sudden we're thrown into this thing Zoom that nobody heard of, 3 years ago, but we're depending on it now and people expect it. So how are we delivering a product that meets the expectations of the folks we would need to serve?
Trustee.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about any connections you have with Johnson County Community College and or anything that kind of display your commitment to education.
Well, commitment to education, that's one of the primary reasons I moved here nearly 25 years ago. I have been involved in communication or for education from the beginning. I think education is essential, is key. I think it's the bedrock of society, and it opens doors. So I don't know if you're speaking specifically about the college or education in general.
Well, basically, yeah. Basically, I'm kind of curious if you have any kind of real ties to the college in particular, or if you've done anything to really show your commitment and be involved in education over the years.
So education, definitely. I've been involved with Blue Valley School District since the beginning. I founded the Fathers Club at our school. I've sat on the Blue Valley BV League. It's a legislative education and advocacy group wanting to maintain good funding for the school, maintain good standards for the school. I've been extremely involved in education. My wife started her career at a community college, Stewart County Community College. She went on to become a physician. So the opportunities are endless. And while there, she got an internship with NASA. So, which is fascinating, which I think is fantastic. The college specifically here, my son went through the TIPS program, which is a fabulous program that my kids have attended, and I am eager to become more involved with this gem and this asset that we have in the county.
Thank you. Trustee Laura Smith Everett.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's right. I'm Smith Everett, not Ingram. Clay, thank you very much. Can you tell me what you see as the role of a community college in a community?
And pardon me, the role of the community
What's
college.
the role of a community college in a community?
in the community?
Mhm.
Well, for many, it's a gateway to education. It's access. I love the mission statement of the college to inspire learning, to transform students and strengthen the community. And it's not just learning, it's inspiring. That's why you have the Nerman Museum here. I mean, that is an asset. That's why you have the Performing Arts Center. There's so many different ways to learn, not just sitting in a classroom with a whiteboard. So I think that is vitally important. I think it forms a structure. It gives it's an economic driver. And if we want to have a good economic, a good economy, a good educated workforce, I think the college is critical to that.
Thank you.
Trustee.
Yes, thank you. If you would describe what you believe to be several of your greatest strengths. And at the same time, if you could share something that you feel would be a weakness and something that you would want to do a little bit better as a member of this board.
All right. I think I'll start off with the latter, the weakness. I discovered when I first started chairing boards and started taking leadership positions, I do have a desire to let everyone have their voice heard, and I want to hear from them. But when you are the chairman of a group of 30-some people, and you keep letting everyone have their say, even though it's the 5th or 6th time you might hear that, it only takes a handful of 3, 4, and 5 hour meetings to realize that we have to find a better way. So one of the weaknesses I would say is, because I want to have everyone have that ability to speak, a reluctance to interrupt and cut them off. But I've learned coping mechanisms. I've learned mechanisms and how to deal with that. So we don't have 3 or 4 hour meetings anymore. Now that I chair the Blue Valley Rec Commission, an average meeting might be 30 minutes, but everyone still feels heard. And I think that's vitally important to make sure they feel heard. And I think that's what it's all about. Strengths, I think I would fall back on my legal training as far as service on this board, the ability to see an issue broadly, yet at the same time, do a deep dive, get down to the core basic issue that we're trying to address, and cut to the chase.
Thank you, Mr. Norkey. The issue of local control impacts many areas of the college's operations, including financing, programming, responsiveness to the community needs, and so forth. Could you please describe your understanding of the various issues embodied in the concept of local control and your opinion of the importance of local control to JCCC's basic governance?
Well, my overall philosophy would be that local issues need to be decided locally. And those local issues hopefully are being decided by the governing body that's closest to the people for that issue. As it applies to the college, I believe local control and oversight by this body has been the standard since the early days. And it set the stage for the excellence that we have now. So I think it needs to be preserved. It needs to be protected. And we need to be very proactive so that it is not infringed upon.
Thank you.
One of our key responsibilities is our budget and the finances, which you've spoken to a little bit, but tell me a little bit about your experience in dealing with large budgets, your ability to review financial statements and those types of things so that that fiscal responsibility we talked about the first time is monitored.
Okay. Well, I will confess, looking over a budget is not my favorite thing to do. But it's necessary. It is critical because it's one of the biggest jobs that a body like this has, is to approve the budget. And I've done that in the past, whether it's at Church of the Resurrection with a multi-million-dollar budget, or Blue Valley Rec with a multi-million-dollar budget, with funding sources coming from all different areas. So I think, number one, you have to rely on your staff. You have to rely on your staff to do a good job, and you have to hold them accountable. The body has to be able to look those statements over, know what they're looking for, question, and sometimes challenge if something just seems awry. And of course, even starting from the beginning, the body has to set priorities and standards and what the goals are so that staff knows where to place the money to reflect those goals and those priorities. So I think it's multifaceted. The experience I've had, that's what I've done in the past. Nothing like $180 million budget, but 20 million, yes.
Thank you.
You talked about diversity in your family. Will you expand upon that and talk about diversity as how it relates to education in our campus?
I believe we have to remove obstacles to education. We have to remove speed bumps. If we have to make sure that everyone has access, and when they get here, that they feel included, no matter who they are. To me, that's vitally important. And I mentioned this earlier. My son, one of my sons, the one with autism and epilepsy, went through the TIPS program here, which is a transition into post-secondary studies, I believe. It's only for outgoing seniors who had a 504 or an IEP. I wish all my kids were able to attend that course. It was phenomenal. I credit it to enabling him to go off to K-State, graduate in 4 years, and now be gainfully employed. So that is fantastic. And you did that. This body, the trustees did that. You didn't teach the course. You didn't run the department, but you set the priorities. You said, this is what we want to do. And that's what they came up with, which is phenomenal. So I want to thank you for doing that. And it excites me to have the potential to be part of this body, to be able to do that for others.
Thank you.
Trustee.
Can you tell me about your first job and takeaways you had from that?
Oh my gosh, my very first job, way back when I probably started working when I was 13 or 14. My dad had a shop. He and my grandpa owned a tool and die shop. It went under in the 80s. But that's where I started sweeping floors, cleaning machines, cleaning the bathrooms after all the shop guys used it all week long. That was my first job. And what I learned from that is I don't want to do that the rest of my life. So what am I going to do? My parents once told me that I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to go to college. I'm going to find a way to do it. And so I did, and I think it stemmed from in that first job. I had to work hard. It gave me the money that I wanted to go out and spend on what do you spend on at 14? You left at the beginning of the day, you came home when the streetlights were on, but it was, something for my bike, candy bars, Burger King down the road. But I learned a lot, and I learned how to do hard work, and I knew what I wanted to do and didn't want to do.
10 seconds.
I was going to say, with the time we have remaining, is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I just want to thank you. Thank you for bringing me forward. I appreciate the time, and I hope I get the opportunity to serve with each of you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
One question is leaving.
Yeah, Mr. Norkey.
Mr. Norkey, if you had to choose between a Bronco and a Chippewa, which would you choose?
Bronco.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's the only time you'll hear me talk during the evening.
Western Michigan.
Bronco, the Western Michigan.
That's Western.
Who's the Chippewas?
Central Michigan.
Central.
The arch rivals.
Any objection to proceeding? I'm going to proceed unless there's an objection.
Okay.
And so I'm going to now ask former trustee Melody Rail to begin with her opening statement. Jason's ready, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Board President Bound, thank you for having me here. It's my privilege to come before you and apply for this position. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to say, I realized that some of you on the board know me quite well and others don't know me at all. And so I thought I'd take a few minutes just to tell you a little bit about myself. I want to start with my greatest life achievement and the thing I'm most proud of, and that's my family. My wife of over 2 decades is an educator for Olathe School District, and she's currently assigned to the Clare Learning Center, which, if you don't know, is part of Kids TLC. She teaches a very special student population there. I married up. She has made it her life's mission to make the world a better place for kids who are in need. Together, we've raised our 3 children who have all now reached adulthood and are in varying stages of being out of the house and off the payroll. Haven't had to go bail anybody out yet, so we're considering that a victory. Our middle son, who recently graduated from Tulane Law School, is also an educator, having accepted a position with Teach for America as an 8th grade social studies teacher in the urban core of Birmingham, Alabama. He's following in that mom's footsteps. Our oldest son graduated from K-State, works as a software engineer for Oracle, and our daughter, who's the baby of the family, is trying to find her path in life. She's currently taking a semester off from her classes here at Johnson County Community College to pursue a full-time internship as an event planner. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm a first-generation college graduate, but like many of the students here at JCCC, I never attended college in the traditional way. On my 17th birthday, I enlisted in the Army, spent 6 years on active duty overseas as a military intelligence analyst. Like many veterans, my military role didn't translate well into the civilian life, but I found my calling in law enforcement. I spent the next 20 years as a police officer here in Johnson County, first with the city of Leawood, and then the bulk of that right here for the city of Overland Park. During that time, I attended classes here at JCCC, graduated with my associate's degree, went on to complete a bachelor's and a master's in criminal justice, took a 1-year leave of absence in the late 1990s to serve as an international peacekeeper in post-war Bosnia, where I trained local police officers and headed the Internal Affairs Division in Sarajevo. It gave me perspective. It gave me perspective about the true meaning and importance of diversity and inclusiveness. Law enforcement was a tremendously rewarding career for me, and I held many roles, including as a member of the first full-time faculty here on campus at the Regional Police Academy. I continued my love of learning and entered law school while still working full-time as a police officer. What the heck was I thinking? About halfway through law school, I was offered a position as a full-time faculty member here at JCCC in the Administration of Justice program. When I graduated from law school and passed the bar, I took a job as an attorney with a big law firm here in Kansas City, but I remained on as an adjunct instructor here at JCCC. And then in 2008, I had the privilege of being selected to fill a vacancy on the JCCC Board of Trustees, where I served with some of you. I was reelected twice and served 1 year as the board chair. In 2013, I stepped down from the board so that I could spend more time with my kids, who were at that time in middle school and high school. I have no regrets, but I've missed tremendously my involvement here at JCCC. My reason for applying for the current vacancy is really simple. I love Johnson County Community College. I was a student here. I graduated from here. I was on faculty here, both full-time as an adjunct, and then I had the pleasure of serving on this board. Higher education changed my life and the lives of my children in a very positive way. As a non-traditional student, I needed JCCC, as do many of the current students here. We often refer to Johnson County as the land of good schools, and that certainly includes Johnson County Community College, which is one of the premier community colleges in the country. But it doesn't stop there. JCCC is a huge part of the economic engine that drives the state of Kansas, providing the labor that our business and industry needs. I can think of no better way to serve my community as a volunteer than to do what I can to assist in the governance of this wonderful institution, to ensure that teaching and learning in the classroom maintains its excellence as it always has, and at the same time, to be good stewards of the tax dollars of the citizens of this county. And with that, I'll take questions.
Jeez. That's pretty good.
Thank you, Mr. Jason. Before we begin, let me just state for any relevant record that I did attend law school with Ms. Rail. I think I got a decent grade in contracts because of an outline she gave me. And she and I have quite candidly, and being a political representative, I get to say things like this. She and I have had a love-hate relationship, although one that has been of admiration more than she probably thought on my end. But I wanted to disclose that fact that we had gone to law school together and served here briefly. So with that said, thank you for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Musil.
Melody, thank you for applying. We have a large number of stakeholders in this college, and they all may demand different things of us with respect to our fiscal and our fiduciary relationship to the college. How do you see those stakeholder groups, and how do you define what your role would be in your fiduciary and fiscal duties as a trustee?
Well, I think the stakeholder groups are, in my mind, quite simple. The students who attend classes here, the faculty and staff and administrators who are a part of the college, and the community and the citizens of that community, including the business community that we serve. And I can remember I served with some really incredibly talented trustees when I was on the board. And we always asked ourselves these two questions when we were looking at making a decision about what we were going to do fiscally or from a policy perspective. And those two questions are, how does it help teaching and learning in the classroom? How is it going to make it better for our students? And two, is it sustainable? Is it fiscally sustainable? And when you bring those two things together, you find the sweet spot between maximizing the teaching and learning that goes on here. That's the incredible important part of our institution, and being good students of the tax dollars that support that role.
Thank you.
Trustee Mattel.
Good evening. My question. What are the 3 issues that you see facing our college over the next 5 years?
I anticipated someone might ask me that question, so I actually gave it a little bit of thought. And when I did, I looked at what I believe are the 4 objectives of the strategic plan. And I think that they dovetail very well with what I see as the 4 things that the college will need to look at in the coming years. Number 1, finding a way to meet the business needs of the community in an unprecedented labor shortage, while at the same time addressing declining enrollment at the college. And I think those 2 things can go hand in hand and help one another. A lot of what we see going on in our society right now is a result of an increased desire or need for both remote work and remote learning. And how are we going to address that as an educational institution? How does that need get filled? How does the college maintain the excellence of education in a remote environment as students increasingly demand that? And how does the college at the same time meet the needs of businesses who are searching everywhere to find talented labor, many of whom also want to work remotely? And I often find that labor that they're looking for is not someone who needs to go to college for 4 years and get a college degree. I've had that conversation with my daughter many times. There is a need out there for people to do a number of things, like event planning, I hope, that don't necessarily require a college degree, but are nonetheless incredibly important. And this institution meets those needs through its technical programs and its other 2-year programs. Second, attracting and retaining talent. There are a number of vacancies at this institution right now, I would guess, as a result of some of the things that have happened over the past few months with respect to retirement, things of that nature. And the college will need to make it a priority, even at the highest levels, to make sure that we attract the top talent in the country that we can find, to maintain the standard of excellence that this institution is known for. And finally, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We hear that phrase a lot, and it needs to be more than just a buzzword. I was having a conversation with someone the other day about how it seems like our society has become more fractured instead of more cohesive as a result of COVID. I have theories about why that might be. One of the things that I think a lot about is how remote work remote dining, remote shopping, doing everything from your house has resulted in us not being exposed to as much intentional integration. If I'm required to go to work every day and work around people who are different from me, I get to know them. And it enhances DEI and most importantly, the inclusivity prong of that. How do we address that as a society and as an institution? How do we meet the needs of the community all across the economic, race, and gender spectrum to make sure that we're meeting the citizens of the community from the very northern portions of the county to the very southern portions of the county? How do we meet those needs as a whole? So those are the three things, Trustee Rattan, that I came up with.
Thank you.
Trustee Ham.
Yes, tell me your strength and your weakness and how you address those, especially the weakness.
So I'll start with my weakness. And my self-introspection would lead me to believe that my greatest weakness is I'm a little too direct sometimes. Chair Cross, thank you for that chuckle. I speak my mind. I'm not afraid to voice my opinions. I try to do so in a very diplomatic way, but I can always be counted on to speak my truth, and sometimes that can be a weakness. My greatest strength is that I am true to my own beliefs. I'm not driven by what other people think I ought to believe or ought to say, what some political agenda thinks I ought to believe or ought to say. I am true to my own beliefs about what's right for me, what's right for my family, what's right for my clients at work, and as a trustee, what would be right for this college and for the community.
Thank you. Trustee Laura Smith Everett.
Thank you. What do you see as the role of a community college in the community?
The role of a community college in the community, boy, that's hard to answer because I think it fills many buckets. The first I would say is to meet the needs of students who, for one reason or another, either don't want to or are not in a position to travel away to a 4-year institution of higher education. And maybe that's because they don't want to move away. Maybe it's because their economic situation won't facilitate it. Or maybe it's because they just want to do something that is more appropriately addressed at the community college level. I also think that the community college is just an incredibly important aspect of our business community. And how do we integrate with the business community as a community college to make sure that we're meeting the needs of businesses across all spectrums? And, part of doing that is that community colleges are uniquely situated to be very locally oriented. What does this community need, and how does this community college serve that need? And then the third thing, and something that I think Johnson County Community College does better than virtually any other community college that at least I've had the opportunity to visit or to learn about, is becoming a cultural part of our community. We have an incredible museum and incredible shows, and we offer an opportunity for the citizens of our community and our students as well to participate in cultural activities that I think are just incredibly important to ensure a well-rounded society. People might differ, but I believe that that's the case. So I guess those are the three things that I would throw out there to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee.
I'm going to share one of my favorite lines from Jon Stewart when he referred to you as Chair Rail. I thought that was brilliant. I'm sorry. That is always humor.
Never thought I'd.
Had to go there, didn't you?
Never thought.
I did. I thought it was the cutest thing. Anyway, how do you see technology affecting Johnson County Community College and education in the next 5 years?
I'm sorry, could you?
How do you see technology affecting Johnson County Community College and education in general over the next few years, 5 years, if you will?
Yeah, I guess I'd answer that a couple of ways, Trustee Ingram. And the first I would say is that it kind of goes back to something I said earlier about remote learning. And for better or for worse, depending on your philosophy, I think we've entered an age where remote learning is here to stay. And educational institutions at all levels need to find a way to ensure that technology is able to meet the needs of remote students without sacrificing the quality of the education that's given. My daughter was a junior in high school when COVID began, and my son was a 1L in law school. Their educational experiences were forever changed by virtue of the fact that they were required to go remote, and no one was prepared for that. And so I think technology needs to be prepared to meet that need. And the second thing I would say is that all three of my kids were born with a little piece of Velcro in the palm of their hand, and it attaches to their cell phone or whatever it is that they have in terms of an electronic device. It won't come off no matter how hard they try. And we have to, as a society, and particularly in our educational world, we have to acknowledge that students are very driven by what they read and see online. And both from a social health perspective and from a teaching and learning perspective, how does an institution of education meet that technology-driven learning style and at the same time try to diffuse some of the mislearning, if you will? I have one of my children is the epitome of confirmation bias. So whatever he believes, he goes out on the web and he finds something that supports that belief, and then by golly, that's got to be right. And I think it's one of the challenges of our society is, understanding how much of what the youth of today believe based on what they're seeing online, and how do we address that? We're going to have to embrace it because the Velcro, it's not coming off. So that would be my answer.
Well, with 3.5 minutes, I get to ask a question finally. So thank you for your answers, and thank you for that opening statement. That was a wonderful opening statement. We have served together, and I'll note that this is your third attempt to be here. It's a little bit of the elephant in the room that this is your third attempt to be here. But I think something that you and I have in common and share is our love for Johnson County Community College. And that was your direct quote. I love JCCC. Could you please talk about what role with respect to institutional memory you might be able to provide should you be selected to serve on this board again? Institutional memory.
Institutional memory.
I want to see what you do with it, right? The vague questions we get in law school, like what do we do with those? So,
that's a tough one. I think the best institutional memory I have that really best encompasses why I love Johnson County Community College is the year that I got to give the graduation speech to our graduates. And I got to stand on that stage and speak to those students from my heart and congratulate them, because I know what some of them have been through. Congratulate them, welcome them across the stage. And every year I loved being up there and getting to congratulate all of those students who have worked so hard to get there. And that's what it's all about, right? That's what it's all about for Johnson County Community College, is changing lives through learning. And I am such a believer in that. I was talking to my parents about that when I was home recently, about the power of education. And when I graduated from high school, we had very little means, and there was no mechanism for me to go to college or join the Army. That was okay back in the 70s, I guess. But we were talking about how education changed not only my life, but the lives of my children and their children for generations to come, and hopefully have made both our lives as a family and the communities that we live in a better place.
thank you for that answer.
You have an incredibly diverse background. And one thing you mentioned in your opening statement, I want to delve into in the last minute here. Your experience as a peacekeeper in Bosnia, I can't even imagine, but you mentioned that gave you a perspective on diversity. Can you expand on that in what little time?
I can. So I had the opportunity to serve for a year in Bosnia, and I had a rather unique experience there because I was able to serve part of that time. I was not part of the military. I was not armed. I spent part of that time living with a Serb family in the Serbian part of Bosnia until we invaded Kosovo and they started bombing 30 miles from where I was and they moved us out. And then I had the opportunity to live with a Croatian family. And then I had the opportunity to live with a Muslim family. And here's what I learned. In Sarajevo, before the Bosnian War broke out, over 50% of the marriage licenses that were granted were interethnic. In other words, between ethnicities. And then, can I finish answering your question? And then at some point, one of those ethnicities were afraid that their piece of the pie was going to get smaller. And they began becoming territorial. And it expanded. And I remember talking to the Serbian family that I was living with, and he pointed up above the TV in their living room to some holes in the wall. And he said, those are the bullet holes from my neighbor who started shooting at me about a week after the Bosnian War broke out, with whom he had been friends for years. It gives you perspective about how a flashpoint can so quickly ignite, about how our differences are not really that different at all, but how quickly it can become problematic. And then we were there trying to repair, I'm sorry, I'm on my soapbox here. I was standing in Sarajevo at the site of the Olympic Stadium. And for those of you who are old like me, you remember when the Olympics were in Sarajevo.
84.
And as I'm standing at the stadium and I'm looking to the south from the stadium, it is now a graveyard of all the people who died in the bombing of Sarajevo. And what a tragedy is that, and for what? Because people were different, and how awful the results of that can be. And that's what I meant by it gives me perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Trustee.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. We'll let you know.
Over halfway.
Does anybody need a break?
Yes.
Very, very good.
All right, I'll take one too.
Sir, I'd like to propose we move ahead.
You'd like to.
Trustee Muse will last for 10 more minutes, so I got 2 minutes. It's hilarious, right? Like I approved, I more than unanimously. Our next interviewee is Mr. Zach Thomas. He's an attorney here in Johnson County. I always forget how to do this. I just ask him to start talking, right? I have to look at my brain, Kelsey Nazar. Mr. Thomas, if you begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. My name is Zach Thomas. I am the proud son of immigrants. My folks moved here from India in 1980. They brought with them a very devout sense of faith, a determination to be hardworking, and a very strong focus on education. From day one, my mom raised me about education, whether it was math, whether it was reading, that was always stressed in our family. I carried with me as I went through school, went to college out in Nashville, came back here to Kansas City to do law school and carry on my own practice. I dream and hope that every day that I can make them proud, that I'm living up to their ideals. Part of my curriculum, part of my education actually started here at Johnson County Community College. And I can't recall if it was during grade school or high school, I was enrolled in summer camps here. Spent many a summer wandering this campus, albeit much smaller at the time, but wandering this campus, taking computer classes and furthering my education. Once I went to college in Nashville, I actually came back here. And I believe it was the summer of, don't quote me, but I believe it was the summer of 2001 or 2002. I enrolled and took 2 classes here at Johnson County Community College that I used for my transcript at Vanderbilt. We lived literally diagonal, 109th and Quivira. We would come up here and play basketball. We would come up here and do all sorts of things. Johnson County Community College has always had a part of my home, part of my heart. I am honored to be before you today to talk about being a member of the Board of Trustees. Why should I be considered a candidate? I'm from this area. I know how important Johnson County Community College is. I bring years of love of this institution, of this area, and of the people that are here. I want to bring a different perspective. Some of the facts put on the website, some of the information, shows great things about Johnson County Community College. One of the big things is the diversity DEI. On a scale of 1 to 7, Johnson County is at 6.01, maybe 6.18, roughly. The students value it. And almost all of those students that deem it important are satisfied with where we're at. There are some troubling figures. Retention rates, success rates are decreasing. And it's not something that can be attributed, or I don't know what it's attributed to, but that's not where anybody wants to be. I'd love to help try and forge a way forward to get those trends increasing, to reach the peers levels, the national levels, or whatever our goals are as a community college. I have had experience, albeit on a much smaller scale, with budgeting. While at Vanderbilt, I was actually head of the student activities fees. We had over $1.3 million in activities fees that were collected and had to be allocated to various organizations, all the organizations on campus. It was a 3-week process where we met with every organization, fielded questions, took their budget into account, and then allocated the money for the next year. They relied upon us. It was a student-run organization, a student-run committee, and we did that. Similarly, recently, I sat on the Johnson County Charter Commission. Trustee Musil was on that, as was the head of it. Trustee Rattan was there too. We sat down, analyzed what needs to go on in the community, what needs to happen in the county, and what changes should, or in our case, need not be made. I am devoted to this community. I am devoted to helping in any way, any fashion I can. And I would be honored. I am honored to be here before you all today. And I would be honored to be sitting with you at the next meeting. I open up to questions.
Thank you, Thomas. By my math, and with the process we agreed upon, Trustee Rattan is first.
Good evening. What 3 issues do you see facing our college or the education atmosphere in general?
I mean, it's no secret that education is at a crossroads. For years, we were focused on, when I was growing up, my mom said, you're going to college, you're going to graduate school, and you had to do that. What used to be a one-size-fits-all application to students through standardized tests and whatnot is changing. The desire or need to go to a 4-year college is no more. And people are realizing that with the burdens of student debt, with the burdens of family life, whatever it may be. So figuring out how we can take advantage as a community college of this crossroads, how we put the right step forward. What do we do to attract more students? What do we do to keep the students that are already here in terms of retention rates? Change that decreasing trend to an increasing trend. How do we guarantee more success? So refocusing and reapplying whatever marketing, however you want to classify it as, whether it's marketing to more students to try and inform them that a 4-year college isn't the only option, that there are more than one option, that there is more than one option. 2, how do we set ourselves apart? What used to be trades are still important, but as technology progresses, you see things, I just read an article about AI affecting the educational space, that Chat GPT, and how it's being banned by educational systems, and how that's going to change how colleges and universities and even high schools do homework, because now students have the opportunity for computers to literally write essays for them. How do we take that next step forward? How does the school change? How does the curriculum change? Or how does the teaching environment as a whole adapt to a new world where, answers are literally at your fingertips and you don't have to do a thing. And 3rd is maintaining what we've got right now. As I said before, I've grown up here. I grew up across the street. To see this campus explode, to see the growth that this campus has already had, that's positive. To see the value that this campus affords, I was shocked when reading the numbers, $97 a credit hour, cheapest in the state. That just blew my mind. Maintain that. Governments might try and change it with tax levy or mill levies or whatever it may be. But I think that status quo is important because it's been a great path so far. So to maintain that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Hamilton.
Yeah. So I believe you ran for DA, correct?
I did.
Do you still have aspirations for DA? And if you do, would that be any issue or being on the board?
I because of how close it was, yes, I'd be lying to say if I didn't. However, in 2020, the world was a far different place. I was afforded the opportunity, not thanks, I hate to say it that way, but because of COVID, pretty much every solo practitioner's practice was put on hold in the criminal field. There wasn't work to be had. To try and run a caliber of that campaign while still having to work, I don't know if it's feasible. Would I love the idea to pursue that? Of course. Is that possible? I don't know. I honestly can't tell you whether or not how that's going to work. Would that pose a conflict, or would I have to step back from this if I were given the opportunity? Absolutely not. I wouldn't have wasted your time coming here with an application, taking up an interview slot if I wasn't dedicated to this position.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Smith Everett.
Thank you. Tell me, what do you see as the role of a community college in the community?
I have to think, because to me, when I was growing up, a lot of my friends came through here. They enrolled here for 1 or 2 years and transferred off. So right off the bat, I want to say, well, as a gap filler for students that want to focus on education, that want to get some of their core curriculum classes out of the way without the pressures of a general college and or the pressures of financial burden. But that's not the case anymore. That, as I said in my introduction, that shouldn't be the case anymore. The way education in my mind is headed is that necessity of graduating from a 4-year college is not nearly as important. Now students can come here, achieve their associate's degree, achieve the training they want, and move on. So calling it a stopgap or a gap filler isn't appropriate. It could prove to still be that. I think I saw, and I know you know the numbers, but maybe 39% of the students are here as a transfer student, like that would transfer in and out. For that, yeah, maybe it is a gap filler. But for the remainder of the students, they're here to achieve one thing or achieve a start of something. And I think the community college affords them that opportunity by whatever route, whether it's non-traditional in terms of somebody going back for further education, whether it's straight out of high school, or whether it's somebody who had a life incident change their life, whether it's a child, whatever it may be. So I think the community college is a tool that can be utilized by people of all walks of life to obtain the foundation necessary to better themselves and better those around them, whether it's a new job, a new career, whatever it may be. So I think there's a community college, if you want me to put it in one word, is like a Swiss Army knife. Depending on who's holding it, they can do whatever they want with it.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for being here. How do you see technology affecting JCCC and education in general over the next 5 years?
For me, I went to school and getting a desktop was the coolest thing I could have in my dorm room. Nobody had laptops. Got to the bar exam, and a year later, people are taking the bar exam on laptops, which just seemed crazy. I didn't trust this technology at that time, so I sat there and wrote for 2 days. Those fears were misplaced, apparently. Now, rather than a laptop or a big desktop, we've got cell phones that can do everything our laptops used to do or do. I think technology is both an asset and a harm. I talk to friends who have kids in school. I talk to teachers. The fact that cell phones are allowed, granted, it's a much different student base, but the fact that cell phones are in the classroom is troublesome to some teachers. And they don't have the authority or wherewithal to collar that kind of distraction. Flip side, the ability to utilize technology, as we do in almost every facet, where we sync it up and the students are looking on their screens at what the teacher is presenting or what we're examining at that time, is invaluable. They can take that then home with them and redo it. You see it now with Zooms in lecture series, how a lecture can be online for students who can't be present. But then if you wanted to go back and review it, it's there for you to review as well. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. How we utilize it in specific trades and specific paths. I'm not musically inclined, but friends of mine have talked to me about how playing the cello, how they can, when they're teaching students, utilize the microphone on their phone and programming on an app on their phone to help the student when they're at home practicing on themselves, know whether or not they're doing it properly. It's just, I mentioned Chat GPT earlier. That's the new newsworthy agenda item. You know, it's great to be able to, in literally seconds, give me the history of Johnson County Community College. And there's a essay that I could read real quick. But like I said before, it's also problematic in terms of how do teachers, if they're giving out essays, how do they ensure that that's not being abused? So I think technology by far yields more positive than negative, but there's got to be a way to control that negative. Otherwise, it could blow up into a much bigger problem.
Thank you. The issue of local control impacts many of the college's operations, enhancing programming responsiveness to community needs and so forth. Could you please describe your understanding of the various issues embodied in the concept of local control and your opinion of the importance of local control to JCCC's governance?
Once again, the topic that can be applied universally across life, but when we're looking at it here, my understanding of local control is that we let those that are here in the area dictate or determine how this community college is going to move forward. We don't need people in Topeka telling us how this school should be run for Johnson County residents. What works in Western Kansas and Wamego or wherever it may be, no, that's not Western, I know, but they came up earlier, is not what's necessarily needed here at all. And to have and maintain this autonomy, to focus on the students that are coming here. Students choose to come here. The numbers were actually very surprising me when I looked at it, to have the diversity that's applied here at the community college just shocked me. And so people are choosing to come here for the programming that's available, for the opportunity that exists outside of this campus. And for somebody else that's not familiar with, that doesn't know, that doesn't have the roots of this county to say, well, no, the community college should be focused on this, makes no sense. So I'm all in favor of the local control because I think that helps shepherd this community college into a path or route that it ought to be. We're not a one size fits all kind of thing where Topeka is going to dictate all of our community colleges should go this way or that way. To allow us the autonomy to maintain those decision making allows us to diversify and offer more opportunities for the students that are coming here.
Thank you. Trustee Music, when you're ready.
Zach, thank you for being here. I think Trustee Raquel and I both had a little flashback when you mentioned Charter Commission, but we're over it now.
Nightmares.
So, well, the college has a variety of stakeholders, and they all play into our fiduciary and our fiscal responsibility. How do you see the role of the various stakeholders? Who are they, and how would you deal with those as a member of the board when you're talking about our fiscal and fiduciary responsibilities?
Well, first off, as a newcomer, I don't have the background information and the history as to who all those stakeholders are. That's something that would have to be learned very quickly about it. Why we do certain things or who these certain people are in institutions or organizations and where we get that funding from. And to learn the relationships of what's expected. If somebody's donating $1 million, oftentimes there's something, whether it's a name on a building or whatever it is. Ultimately, I would assume that the Board of Trustees has the opportunity to decline donations or funding if it comes with a catch that this community college, that this board deems inappropriate, unnecessary for the community college to.
I wasn't talking about, I guess when I said stakeholders, the folks that are involved with the community, the faculty, staff, the students, that type of thing. And I know where you're going and it makes sense, but I didn't want to waste time on how do you deal with those people and making consensus on their views?
Well, those are the people that are instrumental. You could sit as the board in a beautiful room like this and make decisions, but if you never step foot out and talk to the teachers and the faculty and the students and the staff that are working the college, you don't necessarily learn about what's going on. Their voice, their day-to-day activities deals with the very people who you are tasked with representing, tasked with achieving their goals, right? The student success seems to be number one in almost every goal set forth by this college. And so if you don't have an ear to the ground as to what's going on, what complaints are being made, what issues these individuals may have, whether it's faculty not having the freedom to pursue whatever education route they want to or technology route they want to, whether it's students who have issues with, I can't even, I mean, you have to be aware of the concerns that these stakeholders voice. Because if you're not, well, then that student success rate that seems so prominent on the website, the goals that are set forth by the president, by the university, by the college, well, you're not going to achieve those. So you can't be beholden to them and just let them walk all over you, but you have to understand what the problems are, what the concerns are, and move forward and address those.
Thank you. The Black Adam advertisement says you have 1 minute. Trustee Hamble.
Well, okay.
Trustee Raton, excuse me.
Maybe I have my cloak of invisibility on. Discuss your understanding of the responsibilities of a board member, both as an individual and as a collective member of the trustees board.
I would think as an individual, it's clear. You bring your daily life experiences, your life history, your knowledge to this collection, this collective. And as a collective, the goal would be to make sure you do what's best for the community college to achieve its goals, to make sure it stays on a path forward, that it's achieving what it needs to achieve, that it's meeting the metrics set forth each year in the by the president or whoever else is going to set those objectives. So individually, you can't be shy. If you think something should be done, you should speak up. The board collectively gets to determine not whether or not you're wrong or dumb, but if that's the path we should pursue. China's wrong.
Believe that's it.
Thanks, Zach.
Thank you all for letting me be here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Next up is Mr. Jerry Williams.
Everybody.
Welcome.
If we're all in agreement, I think we should proceed here. Ahead of yes, we're ahead of schedule.
Woo.
And I will keep us on schedule.
You're fine. That's it. The running joke. Sorry. Yeah. We're all ready. It's very good. Mr. Williams.
Hi, as you heard, my name is Jerry Williams. I'm happy and honored to be here today. I know that I have 5 minutes for an opening statement, so I wrote my statement out because I would go over. So I'll be looking down, but I want to make sure that I get these words in here. My family and I moved to Kansas in 2012 to allow me to accept a position to work for Sprint CEO Dan Hesse. That position was an attractive one for me and my family. I wish I could say we felt the same about the relocation here from Atlanta. At that time, we didn't. I smile when I say that because today, I'm happy to say that it would be hard, if not impossible, to entice us to ever leave Kansas. We love it here. My two boys, Jeremy and Jordan, attended and graduated from Shawnee Mission East High School, where they were members of the award-winning marching and jazz bands. My wife, Debbie Williams, who is watching today, is a part of the local art scene here in Kansas City. She's currently exhibiting her work at Community Christian Church on the Plaza. Go by and see it if you can. She also participates on the boards for Johnson County Developmental Support, JCDS, the Princeton KU alums, Princeton Prize in Race Relations, the Kansas City Artists Coalition, and the Folly Theater down. We're connected to the city. I continue to enjoy my time here as well in my community, at work, where I spend most of my time, and cheering for my Chiefs, where I spend the rest of my time. I shared with some of you my decision earlier this year to step back a bit from my broad executive level responsibilities at T-Mobile.
After 32 years, they're almost 33 now. I felt it was time for me to spend a bit more time focused on the community. And I say that because it never escapes me each day that I am where I am and achieved what I've achieved because people gave back to the community and assisted me. And I just can never forget that. So I think it's time for me to do the same. Many of the sponsors, many of them I've never met, but I stand here today as a product of their impact, and that taught me a lesson. It's my time to do the same and make community work a priority. Since stepping down, I've made several moves to join additional organizations that focus specifically on youth and education. On a side note, I did return to T-Mobile. I stepped back in April and I'm started back in August, and I worked specifically in D&I. That was an area that really I was passionate about. We focus on supporting employee communities that are underrepresented, specifically at the top of the organization. So I get thrilled when I get to impact young people, and we focus on Black, Hispanic, Asian, Indigenous, people with disability, LGBTQ, veterans, women, all these groups that are considered outsiders somewhat in the corporation. And it's a good thing to have support. I had that support, as I mentioned. So I think about the organizations that I'm involved with. JCC came up as an opportunity, and I jumped on it. I became very impressed with Johnson County when my son attended, and they took such good care of Jordan, and he's probably watching as well. But it made me realize the impact that a college can have on kids. And if you think about Jordan being a young Black male, he didn't finish his education here, but that's part of a trend. If you look at some of the stats between summer of 2021 and 21%, there was a 21% decline in Black males in community colleges across the country. To me, that's a crisis. And I think what's happening here at Johnson County focuses specifically on that crisis, and I'm very proud to be a part of that. Well, hopefully to be a part of that. So with that, I see the clock ticking down. I'll just say I read through the plan. The plan is very impressive. I like what I see here, and I would love the opportunity to join you guys to do the great work that you're doing.
Thank you. The first question for you, Mr. Williams, is by Mark Ham.
Thank you for being here. Could you expand on your involvement with Johnson County Community College and your connections to it, and then also your commitment to education in the community?
Yeah, my son attended here back in 2016. He has some learning challenges, and we sat down with a counselor here on day one and went from top to bottom of the needs that he would need to graduate. Not to get, I mean, it was about graduating. The challenge for him is he didn't really take advantage of what was offered. I mean, that's just bottom line. We haven't given up. I'm on him every day. We're going to get him back here. But that still, that stayed with me, that the college was so impactful for my own son. And think about my own life and some of the work I do. I've been involved with Kansas City Friends of Alvin Ailey for, well, 7 years, because I just finished my tenure there on the board. But the impact that that organization has on kids is amazing. And you think about us it's about bringing dance to people that don't experience many of the arts in the inner city, and it's life-changing. So it doesn't take much other than time and commitment to do that at this stage in my career. And I think I have something to offer to make that happen.
Thank you very much. Trustee Smith Everett.
Thank you. Tell me, what do you see as the role of a community college in a community?
I think it's important. And I think it's becoming more important than ever before. We're starting to see, I'm going to list another board that I'm on, the Kaufman School here in Kansas. Our mission there is to get schools, get kids from inner city to become graduates of four-year colleges. We're starting to hear and see that kids are not that interested anymore in getting through a four-year program for various reasons. I think we're losing the importance of what college can do for people. We see people who actually dropped out of college that are now billionaires. Unfortunately, those people are more popular than some of the others that completed college, and I think it's getting college is getting a bad rap. I think community colleges in particular can train people to be successful here in local communities, because the college is here and part of the community and really understands some of the transformations that are going on. So transformations in, just as importantly, the demographics in the local community. So it's all about listening, being close to the challenges and where the problems might be, and actually being able to impact those problems and initiatives very quickly. I mean, we have a 5-year plan here, and I keep saying there's a 5-year plan here. But I think the purpose of a community college is to respond quickly to the needs of a community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Ingram.
Yes, thank you for being here. Please discuss your understanding of the responsibilities of a board member, both as an individual and as a member of this group.
A board is very important from the standpoint of governing. And governing is different from managing, in that I think part of the board's important role is to support the leadership of its organization, not take over the responsibilities, but to support and offer guidance, suggestions, information on best practices that the leadership might need to do their job. It's all about supporting the mission, the strategic plan, and making sure the college goes in the direction that everybody, all the constituents agree on. I saw in the plan that there are a lot of people involved in kind of pulling that plan together, not just one person. So I like that aspect, and the board makes sure that plan happens. So it's a lot of partnership, a lot of relationships, a lot of listening to all the constituents to make that plan happen.
Thank you.
Mr. Williams, thank you. You have experience in DEI, and how do you think that experience with Sprint T-Mobile would apply with respect to diversity here?
We've been doing DE&I for a while at T-Mobile as Sprint, and we're still not there yet. It's a hard job in that it's not the same for every organization. Diversity is about the numbers. The hard part of diversity is making the numbers work. So part of the priorities of Johnson County is about belonging. Belonging is difficult to implement. All the communities that I mentioned that we work with, there are similarities in some of the challenges between veterans, between LGBTQ, between Indigenous peoples, but there are differences as well. So you have to listen and implement based on the priorities of the organization and some of the challenges and experiences of those different communities that make up the organization. So to say that we have achieved some success in DE&I would be stretching it, but I think we've gotten to a point where we've learned how to listen. And I think that's critical to kind of getting to the next step in our success.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. You've worked with large budgets at T-Mobile and Sprint, and a number of you mentioned listening to constituents. We have a number of constituent groups that talk to board members. How would you handle different constituents groups that want different things from you and still keep it within a fiscal or fiduciary role as a board member? That makes sense?
Yeah, it does make sense, and I'm very familiar with that. It's a way to, first of all, you have to understand your plan and your mission for the organization and understand what you can and cannot do. There's a way to listen to someone and actually say no in a respectable way. But I think it's important to listen and make sure that people feel like they've been heard. And you can make a person feel like they're heard when you can respond back with something that's legitimate. So people want to be heard and they want answers that they can believe and that they can understand. And when you understand what your organization is all about, it's a sense of respect when you're talking to people to make sure you can communicate that back in a way that they can understand. And sometimes the answer is no. And it's sometimes a hard conversation, but that's what we're here for, hard conversations.
Trustee Rattan.
What are some issues you see facing our college and the educational field over the next 5 years?
Well, people have gotten good at online education. I mean, COVID impacted us all that way. I mean, at T-Mobile, we were arguing about whether we could work from home, and COVID hit and suddenly we could do it. I think that brought along with it some additional competition for our college. So you see the large universities with satellite offices all around. I joke that as soon we'll see KU at Starbucks, and it's a new level of competition that the college will have to face to continue the attractiveness that Johnson County has today. And it is the brand at Johnson County is really strong. I think that kind of sets this place ahead. But the competition is coming because people are perfecting online education. I just completed a DE&I course at the business school out of Paris, and it was like being in class. It was high quality, and it's across the ocean. It felt like it was right here. So we'll have competition, not just from Kansas. We'll be seeing colleges across the country and across the world. And we have to continue to bring the goods for people to consider Johnson County.
Thank you.
Trustee.
Could you go through one of your strengths and one of your weaknesses, and in particular, how are you addressing that issue?
The old strengths and weaknesses question. I will not say one of my weaknesses is being a perfectionist. No, I won't say that. I think one of my strengths is relationships. I think it's important for companies and organizations that are working on hard things to really have strong relationships. When the relationships are in place, you can have those hard discussions. And people understand your intent when you have those hard discussions. So over time at Sprint, we've had to go through lots of challenges and very hard decisions about people. And you understand how important relationships are when you have those discussions. I would say one of my weaknesses is it's hard to turn it off. It's hard to turn a hard discussion off. And that kind of goes into kind of personal health and well-being. So it's finding a way to kind of balance that out and stay healthy after you're engaging in such stressful conversations each and every day.
Thank you. Trustee Smith Everett.
The old 2-minute mark I get. I've had this, I've been at this point multiple times, so I am going to ask you with the last 2 minutes. Is that how long I had last time? I feel like I had less time last time.
You use a lot of it.
I sure did, and I'm just gonna burn it down for another.
I see
If-
that clock ticking there.
Yeah, instead of me asking a question, if there's anything else that you feel it's important for us to know about you being an asset to us at Johnson County Community College.
Yeah, I would say I had a chance to study a lot of the plans, the priorities, the mission, the vision of Johnson County, and it's all very impressive. And in talking to people in the community, I mentioned the brand. The brand is strong, and it's a very attractive place for people in our community. The challenge when you're so good is to figure out how you can get better. And I've been in situations and on teams where when you are that good, it's hard to change. And there's always opportunity to get better and improve. I'm not saying that you guys haven't capitalized on those, but kind of driving that message of continuous improvement is a hard job, and I would say it's harder for people in the situation that Johnson County is in. So I think kind of the experience at kind of working with very successful teams, experience at working with dysfunctional teams, an experience at kind of being close to the edge and figuring out how to bring the organization back. I've been in all those situations. Some are not fun, but I tell you, when you go through it with a team, you're forever bonded with those folks when you get through it. So after it's all over, you look back and say, oh, that was fun. Not that you want to do it again, but you learn things. Oh, the bell has gone off.
Well, thank you for being here, Mr. Williams. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Was signaling, and I had been doing I'm a Jayhawk, Ken, but I stopped.
My wife's a Jayhawk. We get along.
All right, if we're ready, I'm going to ask Mr. Commissioner Seltzer to begin. Commissioner.
Thank you for the opportunity. I truly appreciate being included here. I'm so thankful you saved the best for last. We're here to provide as much information as I can. My name is Ken Seltzer. I'm a CPA, a businessman, a mentor to high school and college students, and of course, your former Kansas insurance commissioner. We did a lot of good things in that office, and we can talk about those later if you want to. Some of you know my wife, Deb Grimes. I also have two daughters, one who did 30 hours of college now at Blue Valley North here in Johnson County. She went on to get an accounting degree and a master's in accounting from K-State and is doing incredibly well at PricewaterhouseCoopers in cybersecurity, in their cybersecurity unit. So want you to know that you gave her a very good start. I also have a nephew that went here, got an associate's degree, is now a very successful pharmacist in Lewisburg, Kansas. I am a fourth generation Kansan, a proud first generation college graduate, 7 kids in my family. We were incredibly financially challenged until my dad taught himself to be a bricklayer. My only brother that didn't get a college degree went on to become the chairman, the president of the Alaska Bricklayers Union. So a trade that did very well for my family, but we were incredibly financially challenged. Education changed the trajectory of my life. It opened a whole new world as a first generation college student. Then my other siblings also followed me to college. 3 of them actually started at a community college in Kansas. 3 went on to get their MBAs. 1 became an attorney. So a well-educated family from a first generation start on my part. I was awarded, this is kind of a sappy story, but it's important. I was awarded a tiny $250 scholarship from my high school school district because they knew I was financially challenged. They knew I worked hard and knew I had showed promise. I went to K-State and had 2 part-time jobs during that first semester. It's the only reason I was able to stay in school because I had that $250 scholarship. That is why my wife and I provide so many scholarships throughout the community. Her high school, my high school, K-State, some limited at KU and some different places. We are fans of providing scholarships to first generation students who are financially challenged, and the schools help us find those people. I graduated cum laude from K-State with a degree in accounting, came to Johnson County in 1975 to work for one of the premier CPA firms. I know budgets, I know financial things. I worked for them for 6 years, went on to get an MBA from the University of Southern California. I've also served on the Fairway City Council and have served on a number of boards of directors. I know what it takes to govern an entity like Johnson County Community College. Perhaps I can bring out a few more things in our Q&A session, but in my limited time, I do want to point out a couple of things. If you'll go to my application that's in front of you, you see a list of names on the last page of the application, people who want to step up and tell you about the good things I do on community boards, community organizations. You know most of the names here. Dr. Tanya Merrigan, who's a superintendent of Blue Valley School District. Again, my daughter got her 30 hours of community college credit there at Blue Valley North. They have a wonderful College Now program associated with the community college here. They have a career tech program that is beginning to mushroom there. It is a perfect resource for them that you're providing to them and should be a model of other places in the community. Dr. Sonia Evans actually applied for this position too. You considered her application. She will make a wonderful board member for you at some point in the future. I do want you to remember her name. Peggy Dunn, Mayor Peggy Dunn knows me through the Leawood Foundation, where I've served for a couple of years now. And she knows I'm good at fundraising. She knows I'm good at board work. Amanda Villarreal, she's an entrepreneur, a CEO, a businesswoman. People know her in the business community. She would make an excellent person, again, on your board in a couple of years. She represents the Hispanic Chamber as well. Adam Hamilton, many of you know him, obviously. We're charter members at Church of the Resurrection. Carter File, president of Hutchinson Community College. Am I out of time?
Yes.
I would just say very simply, I bring a lot of experience to the board, and I want you to know that I have a lot of good community contacts that can help benefit this board. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And your list of references is impressive, including, frankly, one advisor to President Obama, Adam Hamilton, I know had a relationship with the president. And I appreciate that list greatly. And one of the reasons why I changed my mind and had you here in that special meeting. So I appreciate you being here very much.
Thank you.
And I respect that list of references and I respect you. With that said, I believe we are starting with Trustee Smith Everett.
I think it's back to me. All right. Good evening. Thank you for coming. Can you briefly describe for me what you see as the role of a community college in a community?
Well, I think to me, that's really obvious. It provides a local education for kids who need direction or want direction, who want to take an interim step maybe before they go somewhere else, or who want to get a career tech degree or some other type of a certificate here. And I do have to bring in the very clear point. I worked with Blake Flanders at KBOR on developing the Kansas Insurance and Financial Services Certificate that is now taught or provided in 6 of the 7 KBOR schools in Kansas. It has over 1,200 people enrolled in credit eligible courses for that certificate. It has really mushroomed. He helped me develop that. That's one of the things we can do here. We have a big insurance community here that needs people. We could help be responsive to that. The community college here is a place for people to that needs to be a place where all people of all types, all kinds can come and feel like a part of the community and get their start on a further education. There are so many opportunities here for older students, for minority students, for students like my daughter who are in high school. There's just an incredible variety of constituents that we need to respond to and be a market for.
Thank you.
Trustee.
Thank you. Mr. Stelzer, how do you see technology affecting Johnson County Community College and education in the next 5 years?
It will help us. It will help us. I think our job and the president's job always has to be thinking in the future. We have to be 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. We have to be thinking about where we're going to want to be and how we're going to get there. Technology will always be a big part of that. And you know, some people can resist it. We have to embrace it. We all have to embrace it and see how we can help us achieve our goals with it rather than be fearful of it. Obviously, we were pushed into using technology here in on the teaching platform over the last couple of years, but it goes so far beyond that. We need to embrace it.
Thank you.
Commissioner, what role do you see diversity, equity, and inclusion on our campus?
We are a diverse campus. We are. And in fact, maybe even more diverse than the community we serve. We need to continue pushing that. We need to continue embracing everyone that is in this community. And people come from different places, just like I came from a different place than some people when I was younger. But we need to provide the resources to people so they can succeed. And that goes back to Trustee Smith Everett. That's one of the questions you asked. What is our role as a community college? We need to provide those tools that can help students of all kinds, of all financial backgrounds, of all races be a part of this community. We're in the end preparing a workforce, and we can better serve that workforce by being as diverse as we possibly can.
Thank you.
Stretching from that then, Ken, we have a diverse set of constituency groups too, from the taxpayers and citizens, faculty, staff, students, other board members. What's your experience in working with constituency groups like that may want different things, and how you end up reaching a consensus, particularly when it comes to fiscal and fiduciary duties?
Yeah, I love to talk about that. We can look at constituents of this school, of this institution, by looking at the financial statements, by looking at your budget. You look at the revenue side of the budget, and it's students, about 17% of our budget. It's state aid, about 16% of our budget. And it's taxpayers, about 67% of our budget. We can look on the other side of the ledger, and our biggest expense is the teaching component of it. How can we do more as we possibly can? And I again have had the experience of that in the insurance department, where we had to manage dollars that were public dollars. it made a difference. And we can be thoughtful. We can always question our expenses. We can always question our investments, making sure there's a return for that investment that we make. How do we deal with them? How do we bring them together? There are some conflicting constituents there. The biggest piece is our property taxes here, the 120 million in property taxes that we collect. It's about 7% of the property tax dollar throughout the county. It's important to the taxpayer. And I think we have to show them that we're being thoughtful about the investments that we make and make sure that our investments pay off. They need to pay off. We can do that with the people that we have on the board. I think you need to add a businessman to the mix, which is what you have here, a business background, a CPA, somebody who knows budgets, who's been in the business world, who has successfully managed a budget. So thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Rutan.
Mr. Seltzer, you ran for commissioner of Johnson County last year. What role do you think politics plays in education?
I don't think it should be very political at all. I've won partisan elections. I've lost partisan elections. I've won nonpartisan elections, and I've lost a nonpartisan election, the last one that you referred to. My point is education ought to rise above that. We have people elected to this board. It was set up, I think this board was set up partly to watch the local community dollars, the investment this community is making sure we're getting an output that serves the needs of this community. And to a large extent, that need is workforce or a stepping stone to university and further education. Career tech is a big part of it now. So I think politics ought to be kept at a minimum. I know there's allusions sometimes here at this board meeting to political things. I will stay as apolitical as I possibly can in this nonpartisan role.
Thank you. Trustee.
Yeah, can you talk about your commitment to education? I know one of the things you said is that you personally fund scholarships for college students.
Yes. Would you all, is that the end of the question?
Yeah, just basically your commitment to education.
I'd love to have you go in your packet as a resume supplement to my regular resume. It's a 2-page piece of paper that talks about my education, my support of education, my involvement with education. And you can see it does take 2 pages. I'd like to point out just a few highlights to you. My wife and I developed the Innovative Teacher Award for Blue Valley School District to recognize educators who aggressively innovate in engaging students in learning. My third grade teacher that popped out to me was somebody who made me pay attention and made me learn. And I've always remembered that. And Blue Valley so embraced that thought, that idea. We took it over to Olathe. And for about 4 or 5 years now, they have been doing that Innovative Teacher Award, which my wife and I fund. We support foster care students who age out of foster care system. They get free tuition at Regents schools, but they don't get any help beyond that because they're gone from their support network. We do a lot of things like that. If you go down a few more items, both Deb and I have sat on the Blue Valley Board of Education. She sits on the Lewisburg High School Endowment Association. Can you believe it? Blue Valley inducted us into their Hall of Fame for our support of education. We both serve as mentors to high school students. I have in my Rotary Club, we have a meeting, a program at Bishop Ward High School, which, as you know, are almost all first generation and many minority students. My wife and I have 3 students there that we're mentoring. I'm proud to say out of the 6 KC scholars out of a group of 25 that were awarded, we have 3 of them. They've done well. Our students have done well. I am a mentor to K-State students. I have been for years. I sit on the KESU College of Business Advisory Council. And what's important about that is we discuss all the time the same issues we're dealing with here. How do we increase enrollment? How do we become more effective? How do we get more out of our education dollar, our tuition dollar? How do we deal with pressure on state aid, which we're going to face here in 2 or 3 years? We've hit a little bubble now where state aid's been a lot easier to come by, maybe 2 years, but it's going to be a problem in about 3 or 4 years down the road. It's easy to see. Deb and I also sit on the KSU Foundation Board of Trustees. We provide scholarships to some other areas, the data management students. Here's a good one. So JCC is starting a program for teachers with K-State. They'll do 2 years here. They'll go to K-State. They'll come back to the community and do their student teaching here. Where they lose traction is in the transition from the local community college to K-State. We're providing scholarships to encourage students to actually make that transition. We're just starting that just this year. We funded it about 2 months ago. It's really fun to see. Educators, as you know, it's really tough for educators, for education schools to recruit. And this is one way that K-State has maintained, in fact, increased their teacher enrollment in their College of Education. Okay, I think that's enough. I'm in the K-State Accounting Hall of Fame. I've served on the Educational Foundation for the Kansas Society of CPAs. We've done a lot in education. Thank you.
Trustee Smith there.
Thank you. What do you see as the top 3 issues facing the college in the next 5 years?
I think state aid is one of those. So I know enrollment has to be at the top of the list. I'm so thankful to see this little hook or flattening of the enrollment decline. We've got a booming population here in Johnson County. I feel like we should be growing even though community college enrollment countrywide is going down. We are booming so much here and have so much future here. I really, truly want to be a part of that. Here's a couple of examples. The company I worked for many years, Aon in Chicago, championed a registered apprenticeship program. We do that here in our culinary school. And by the way, thank you for building a barbecue pavilion out there. I am a certified barbecue judge, I'll have you know. Some programs like that really bring in business dollars in addition to the tuition and state aid and property tax dollars. I really think I could help with the business development, business partnership. I think you call them community partnership businesses. I could really help with that. I have connections throughout the business community here in Johnson County. I'm connected with many of your major donors to the foundation. I'd be honored to help solve enrollment problems, be honored to help work with the foundation on a concept of giving, developing a culture of giving in the foundation amongst your alums, amongst your business partners, a lot of very positive things there. So enrollment, state aid, a huge issue. And I think developing the business community here.
Trustee Eger.
Yes. Well, in keeping with our theme of you have less than a minute, and we apologize for that, but is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I'd like to, if I could, just wrap it up here a little bit with a summary of what I can bring to the table here. So I bring to this board a business person's perspective. And I see that as perhaps a gap in experience that you have here that could help round out the board. As a CPA, I know budgets. I have experience in large organizations, managing an entity dependent on public dollars. I'm also experienced in working effectively on boards of directors. You see those on my resume. I will always focus on what is good for the organization. I think you would be pleased with how I would interact with this board and what I can contribute to the board as it governs the Johnson County Community College. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our interview portion for the evening. I believe the next item on our agenda is, as agreed. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Is the 10-minute session, do we want to begin that now, or does anyone need a break?
I thought the 10 minutes I talked about earlier was after the first nomination. but- So it was,
George voting, right?
yeah.
I don't care.
I
So
don't
you want to
believe it.
vote now?
For the first round, yeah.
For the first round, I thought, yeah.
I
Narrowed it down a little bit, I think.
Okay, okay. Is everyone in agreement with that?
Sure.
Let's vote.
Vote for your top 7.
No, more 7.
Can you remind us? I know you read that. thing.
Process.
Yes, but a lot has happened since you. read
No, here we go. So we've conducted the interviews. And thank you for the staff and everyone for putting that together. I sure appreciate it. Now that the interviews are completed, we'll begin the nomination round. Written ballots have been provided to each trustee. Trustees may vote for up to 2 candidates to be moved forward to the final round. The ballots will be tabulated and read aloud. Who's going to collect them? Yes,
We collect them.
do that. Any candidates not receiving 2 or more votes will be eliminated. All candidates receiving 2 or more votes will then be moved forward to the final round. If I may, I'm going to go ahead and read this portion just from my own brain. The final round of, it's after that round you want to have 10. So you want to vote first and then have a 10-minute discussion.
I want to nominate first. This is a nomination ballot, right? Anybody that gets 2, then I think we talked about having a 10-minute period. We'll vote again, and whoever's left, we have the opportunity for another 10-minute period.
You know, that's why you went to Virginia law. I keep getting that confused. Nomination round. So you want to do the nominations, reduce it to the final numbers, then have. a
That's
discussion.
my thought. It'll move it fast.
That's fine.
I haven't done the math, but I assume somebody's not going to get 2 votes and we'll be down to fewer people to talk about.
Narrowing, yeah.
Final round of voting, that process will proceed as follows. Written ballots will again be distributed to each trustee. Trustees will then vote for only 1 candidate. The votes will be tallied and read aloud until there are 2 final candidates. The candidate receiving the fewest votes in each final round of voting will be dropped until 2 finalists remain.
That's redundant.
So
You said 2 finalists twice.
yeah, that's my mistake. Thank you, trustee Rattin, for pointing that out. Until there are 2 final candidates, the candidates receiving the fewest votes in each final round of voting will be dropped until 2 finalists remain. Unless only 1 candidate receives a majority of the votes outright. So the candidate receiving the fewest number of votes will be dropped. Correct. Once there are 2 finalists, the board may openly discuss the 2 final candidates for up to 5 minutes.
So it's already part of that process, but you're asking 10 or was that? Sorry, I didn't mean to speak out of you.
I like 10.
Well, my
I don't like the Cubs and I want to do 10. So that's where I disagree.
My thought was that once we narrow it down in the nomination round, I think that usually gets down to 4-ish, based on the number, just on the math. Then we would have the opportunity to discuss those 4 before we start voting for 1. Each of us vote for 1. And then each round, as somebody drops off until somebody gets the majority, we would have the opportunity to discuss those remaining candidates.
Let's do 10 in the beginning, if I may suggest, and then do 5 thereafter.
That's fine. I just think, and we may not want to have discussion or need to have discussion.
I agree.
But I think we ought to have that opportunity for board members.
I can. So just so I'm clear, you want to do 10 minutes after we nominate here. We get a list of finalists. And then do 5 minutes thereafter, because we're going to have, I foresee potentially some deadlock votes. And so I remember 5 years ago, 7 years ago, coming back and revisiting as we got, the vote changed. The game literally changed and candidates changed. Okay. The 5-minute discussion and voting on the final 2 candidates may be repeated multiple times if necessary.
Mhm.
When 1 candidate receives the majority of the votes, I will ask for a motion to select the final candidate to fill the vacant trustee position. Again, this process will likely take some time. So I will call for a break at some point during any break. No, probably skip that. Any questions? I think we vote.
We each have a ballot with spot two names. Fill that up. If you sign it, please.
Thank you.
Out of my purse. Providing the musical interlude. We didn't go over that. Trustee Himmel, break it out.
I'm good. Thank you.
Super Can, you have any music you can play while we,
Workout music.
oh yeah, you would.
Skip
You
break,
would.
skip break.
Yeah.
Don't ask Greg. He's probably got something.
That's a good one. Yep.
I told you I'm the person to do it.
Do you really? Yes, you have the original
Okay.
You know them?
sheet music.
He was the father, Dumpy Bowles,
You don't know.
good old Dumpy. You didn't know Dumpy?
Swear to God, that's a name.
Dumpy Bowles.
What do you hope to?
He was too small to play football. So he it literally was kind of a bad guy in Kansas City, with a great history. But anyway, he wrote the fight song and presented it and they.
Well, when?
I've got, I don't know, but I've got legal paperwork on it in my basement.
What's the story behind Wabash Cannonball?
Oh, that's
What
a cool
building
one.
burned?
Nichols Gymnasium burned in 1968. It burned all of the band's music and because the music department was in there, except the band director had Wabash Cannonball music at his home. And so for the next 6 basketball games, that was what they played. And so it became the unofficial fight.
Oh, how fun.
I didn't know that till the Wabash Cannonball.
An interesting story.
The Wabash Cannonball.
Ready when you are, sir.
We have a tally. How do you want to proceed? You want Caitlin to read it? Go ahead.
Julie Brewer received 2 votes with a vote from Lee Cross and Don Ratan. Greg Mitchell received 0 votes. Clay Norkey received 1 vote from Greg Musel. Melody Rail received 3 votes from Lee Cross, Nancy Ingram, and Greg Musel. Zach Thomas received 2 votes, a vote from Laura Smith Everett and Mark Himmel. Jerry Williams received 3 votes with a vote from Nancy Ingram, Laura Smith Everett, and Don Ratan. And Ken Selzer received 1 vote with a vote from Mark Himmel.
See that?
Thank you. And so now we proceed, we need another ballot, is that right?
Yeah, I'll pass them out.
Okay.
This one was 2.
So
I thought this round was a 2 vote again.
No, once you get through the first round, it's down to 1.
So do we only use the top vote getters though? We're only picking
Yes,
from this.
let's recap. So right now,
They got two.
Melody Rail and Jerry Williams had 3. Is that correct?
Yes.
Then Julie Brewer and Zach Thomas each had 2, which means that Commissioner Seltzer, Clay Norkey, and Greg Mitchell are thus eliminated from further consideration. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
And is this where we were gonna have discussion or not?
We have the opportunity for it. I mean, that's what the plan was, so.
I see paper getting.
Anybody wants it?
I don't know. Does anybody want any discussion?
I think, yes, of course, I always have. But I promise not to take the full 10 minutes. I think it's important to have diversity of perspective as well as occupation. And making my decisions based on that. I think I'll leave my comments at that.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? All right, I'm going to ask that everyone pass their ballots in, please.
Feel cramped, please.
Oh, print names?
Yes,
It
please.
says signature.
Oh,
Just
probably.
give us a hint.
Probably, if you gave me.
We could, I think I've got it.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I'll verify.
There's really then you.
100%.
At least let the first letter be well.
We got it.
L is probably my favorite cursive letter, actually.
I know, right?
It's
It's
pretty
a good
cool.
one.
It's
It's a
the
really
best
good
one.
I'm a.
My bank.
Yes.
What is this? Is this you? And I'm like,
Ready?
Yes, not
Yep.
eligible. They might know. Look at my beautiful.
Yeah,
house.
I am a lefty.
I've had people in trial that say,
Very eligible.
what is that? I go, something you can't read.
I could write.
No, just. Little kid.
Are you putting it on lefties that have poor handwriting? Come on now.
I have great
No,
handwriting.
no. I'm looking
Are you
for-
Southpaw? Are you left-handed? My daughter, Mia's left-handed.
Three of us?
Three of us. The ones in the right mind.
Drop.
We didn't ask that question. We
Which
could've
is-
asked Who's the lefty? Gosh, we missed an opportunity.
Right. Okay.
Let's do it all again.
We will.
You better not. Hmm.
It's the worst system.
Ready? Okay, we have the votes. Julie Brewer received 0 votes. Melody Rail received 3 votes with a vote from Lee Cross, Nancy Ingram, and Greg Musel. Zach Thomas received 1 vote with a vote from Mark Hamill. Jerry Williams received 2 votes with a vote from Laura Smith Everett and Don Ratan.
Just get rid of one of the ones, the lowest vote getter is the only one that's eliminated. Or do you have to have 2? No, you don't have to. have 2.
Lowest. is
Lowest vote.
eliminated.
Most will get it.
Okay. Wait, I see. It's just the lowest. For our rules.
We're gonna get the same result again that we're doing.
Yeah, well, oh, that's right, because
Wait on three.
Well, ask Kevin McCarthy how that turns.
What's that? Yeah.
Just keep doing it.
Yeah. Well,
Between the three or the.
correct.
Three, but
On the rails, Zach Thomas. Jerry Williams.
Or we can ask if you want.
Yeah.
It's between the three. Oh, I see. Yep. She didn't receive.
There, sir.
I'm actually fine with either one.
Not easy.
Good.
I don't-
What?
I find it rather irritating. as that.
Can we take this one back? You know?
Get lost.
And then you're gonna give them-
Need it?
You want this? You want that wrong one?
They're expensive.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
okay, well,
Oh, yeah. You took it able to do that.
Just put them in here for now.
All right.
Who'd you vote?
Secret. For now.
Secret.
Momentarily secret. Momentarily.
My wife hates that. You get in the car and be like, who'd you vote? She's like,
my aunt and uncle moved to North Carolina in 1968. And they voted in the presidential election between Hubert Humphrey and Richard Nixon. They said they waited 3 hours in the rain. They got out and they found out they voted each for the other. So what they learned was talk before you go into the ballot box. One of my early memories of an election story.
Watched some documentary about Johnson's resignation that spring. What a momentous thing it was. And just not resigned, that he withdrew.
No.
Oh,
Because he had been in New Hampshire.
Yep.
In 68. Like,
McCarthy beat him there, didn't he?
I believe so. And he finally saw the writing on the
1, 2. Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, I do think that's something.
We're ready? Yes, please.
Okay, Melody Rail received 3 votes, a vote from Lee Cross, Nancy Ingram, and Greg Musel. Zach Thomas received 1 vote with a vote from Mark Himmel. And Jerry Williams received 2 votes with a vote from Laura Smith Everett and Don Ratan.
Eliminate the lowest
It
again.
eliminates the lowest, so that leaves Melody Rail and Jerry Williams. Yeah.
The numbers keep coming out.
We should
the same.
expand the board to 8 people.
Not a bad idea.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would, everybody's writing their vote down,
This
so
was
I
5 minutes.
I don't think this makes a difference, but these are 2 superb candidates and there's a dramatic contrast because one is brand new to the community college
Mhm.
and the other one has a long history of service, and you can evaluate those things in 2 different ways.
Mhm.
I've never seen Jerry Williams before tonight, and I am extremely impressed that he would do a good job. I've served with Melody and I know she would do a good job. So I think we're at the point now where it is almost flip of the coin. And I don't know where this vote will go, but it's the 4th time I've done this. And I'll probably offend people that were applicants the first 3 times, but this is the strongest group, all 19 of the 7 we interviewed tonight of those times. So I told you all in advance, this would be a difficult process, and I hope for once I've proven to be right.
Anything further? I think I'll probably concur and endorse that opinion and just say, there are people I personally asked to apply that are no longer in this process. I thought they would do a good job. So thank you to everyone who applied.
Yeah, I'd say we have 2 great candidates to decide between, and it is a difficult decision. But I think we'll have a great candidate at the end of the day.
Sometimes.
This one is.
Can't do one at a time.
This is the fourth ballot.
Third final, yes.
And she has relationships already.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, you don't got the nomination.
I'm back at Dominic.
I went to.
Ready?
So look, I'm not talking to anybody. Anybody. But I can talk to everybody.
Some of us that don't get there. Man, it's going to.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay.
Melody Rail received 4 votes with a vote from Lee Cross, Nancy Ingram, Mark Hamill, and Greg Musil. And Jerry Williams received 2 votes with a vote from Laura Smith Everett and Don Ratan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kate, for reading that. Thank you, Dr. Brown, and to everyone, and to the fellow trustees for going through this extremely difficult process. I guess I'd like to take this opportunity to ask, I think procedurally, I need to ask for a motion. Select the final candidate to fill the vacant trustee position.
Seconded.
The motion has been made by trustee Ingram and seconded by trustee Ratan. Any discussion? I don't think there's-
I suppose we need to make it clear that the motion was for Melody as the 4 vote getter.
Yes.
I think that would be smart. I think it cleared all of us here, but it might not be.
You're right. Thank you.
The motion
Clarification.
to approve former trustee Melody Rail as the new trustee for this vacant position been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if nobody else is going to do it, I intend to reach out to Jerry Williams tomorrow and get him involved with the foundation or somewhere else in the college. Because he has a ton of talent to offer us and a perspective that we haven't had before on this board.
I think all of them. I would welcome all of them at the foundation. I completely agree with you. Particularly, and I said something, I think Friday, when I interjected in the committee meetings and said, look, you know, the business community, many entities across the country have struggled with how to implement DEI.
Yep.
And I know, I think it was trustee Ratan said that this has been going on for years, and indeed it has. And there's actually been lawsuits considered about companies, different entities, adherence to their policies. So I would welcome his perspective. I simply didn't know him or have any basis background with him, so I apologize. But I did what I thought was in the best interest of the college. That was what I said at the top of this meeting, and I stand by it. And I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of accepting Melody Rail as a new trustee here at Johnson County Community College, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, no.
Can I abstain? Is that possible?
You sure can.
Okay, I'd like to abstain.
So therefore, Mr. President and Caitlin, the vote is 5, 4, and 1 abstention. So I'd like to congratulate trustee Melody Rail, be the newest trustee of the Johnson County Community College Board of Trustees. And
I move we adjourn.
I'd welcome a second.
Second.
Motion has been moved by trustee Musil and seconded by trustee Ratan. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? The opinion of the chair, motion unanimous.
I got to go.
Thank you for coming.